Evelyn said her identity was all made up. Did Leo actually believe that? Honestly, no. But whether he believed it or not was irrelevant. He had no idea what kind of self-defeating drama she was wrapped up in. If he were to deconstruct the woman he knew, there were certain traits he couldn't care less about. Did it matter if she was a psychologist? She could be a chef, a sailor, a janitor. What difference did it make to him? Even setting aside their shared history, they had helped each other through the Miller family saga and the whole mess with the mafia game. At the absolute minimum, they were friends. So, operating on the principle of I'm back on my feet, so I'll give you a hand up too, Leo was willing to help her. Whether she chose to stay in Riverbend or leave to start a new life, he'd support her. But this ending? This he couldn't accept. Either don't lie in the first place, or see the lie through to the end. Wasn't the whole point of the deception to get to this moment? Why the sudden crisis of conscience? He felt an urge to just start screaming. His first instinct was disbelief. But he hesitated, because a person like Evelyn Shaw, if she truly wanted to deceive someone, would construct a flawless logical chain. He had to admit, she was a natural-born liar. Her stories wouldn't be full of holes. But if he applied a kind of reverse psychology, maybe this particular lie was designed to exploit that very assumption. Maybe she deliberately left it full of holes. Then again, she seemed to have laid some groundwork. Why else would she have taken him to that tattoo parlor, to show him those messed-up kids? Thinking about it for another minute nearly fried his brain. Whoever married Evelyn Shaw was in for a wild ride. A life of constant mind games, mutual deception, and a simmering urge to stab each other. I have to find out the truth, he muttered, tossing and turning in the hotel bed, unable to sleep. There's no such thing as a wall without a single crack. He grabbed his phone and dialed the number for Evelyn's aunt. Auntie, I need to ask you something. Evelyn's parents are deceased, right? Yes, they passed away. A fire? That's right. Old wiring in their apartment building. It was on the news. And her grandmother is also confirmed deceased? Yes, a traffic accident. Hearing this, Leo's expression relaxed. The basic setup was real, so she was still playing games. But the next part of the conversation made him tense up all over again. And because you had 3 of your own kids to raise, you couldn't take care of Evelyn, so you sent her to an orphanage? That's not right. I did send her to the orphanage, but it wasn't because I didn't want to raise her. Perhaps realizing how that sounded, like she was dodging responsibility, the aunt offered a much more convincing reason. The money in her parents' bank accounts, the insurance payout, and the aid from various agencies was a significant sum. After her grandmother died, if I wanted to get my hands on that money legally, I would have gritted my teeth and become her guardian, no matter what. Then what made you give it up? She was too rebellious. I couldn't control her. The aunt sighed, as if dredging up a painful memory. Can you imagine a little girl, not even 10 years old, sleeping with a kitchen knife under her pillow every night, swearing that if anyone dared to come into her room, she'd kill them and then kill herself? Why? How should I know? All our relatives and friends said there was something wrong with that child, that we needed to get her away from us, quickly. I see. Just before hanging up, Leo asked one last question. Do you know which orphanage it was? The Riverbend Hope Children's Home. Got it. Leo hung up and immediately dialed his father. Rick, do me a favor. Find a phone number for the director of the Riverbend Hope Children's Home, the one who was in charge about 15 years ago. You got it, son. Rick Miller was efficient. The number arrived via text less than 10 minutes later, followed by call. Son, your mom and I are thinking about getting remarried. Wanted to get your opinion. You should be asking Mom. What's the use in asking me? Well, I figured if you were okay with it, I'd give it a shot tomorrow. Good luck. If that's all, I'm hanging up. Wait, don't hang up. Son, you're the expert in romance. Help your old man analyze the odds here. Based on you alone? It's a long shot, Leo said, offering his most sincere assessment. It was the truth. He had no idea if his father had been kicked in the head by a donkey. You had to pick the perfect, dramatic moment for winning back an ex-wife. The father had inherited none of the son's talent. Rick, why didn't you do this when the patriarch died? You could have roughed yourself up a bit, driven that beat-up car back to Riverbend Estates, and knocked on the door looking like you were on death's door. When Mom asks what happened, you look up, tears in your eyes, and say, Diane, it's over. You were the one who suffered the most all these years. Wouldn't that have solved everything? Can I still use that move? Nope. The patriarch's death special event has expired. Leo shot down the idea mercilessly. He was about to hang up and wish his old man luck when Rick surprised him. Son, you're a good kid, sending over 2 of your little daughters-in-law as reinforcements. Which daughters-in-law? Son, I gotta give you some advice. Even an emperor has a roster for his harem. It's one thing to be a player, but you can't just forget who's who. I'm asking you who the reinforcements are. Your fiancé and your other little daughter-in-law, of course, Rick said, genuinely confused. The one with Willow must be Skylar. Talking to his father was exhausting. For a brief moment, Leo felt a deep empathy for ancient emperors. No wonder they had so many titles for their concubines. If you just call them all consort, how would you know who anyone was talking about? Rick, watch what you say from now on. Don't just call everyone little daughter-in-law. Nothing's set in stone, and it's not fair to the girls. At my age, you think I make a rookie mistake like that? The ones who aren't official, I call them little girlfriends, to help you out, be your wingman. The ones you're serious with, I call them little daughter-in-law to show my approval. Calling Willow that is one thing, but Skylar and I aren't on the same path. I get it, son. I'm online a lot. All the young couples who break up say they're not on the same path. I'm telling you, Skylar is different. Son, that's a little cold, don't you think? Both relationships ended, but you were so gentle about Summer. Why won't you give Skylar the same courtesy? By the lake, in Evelyn Shaw's rental, Vesper and Evelyn sat on the floor in loose-fitting pajamas, watching the wind billow the curtains. The damp air stirred their restless hearts. Vesper kept trying to lighten the heavy atmosphere. Leo seems a little different than when he was a kid, she mumbled. How old was he the last time you saw him? No, I saw him last year. You brought him to that party to let loose, and his phone blew up with messages from all those women. Evelyn shook her head, not answering. Vesper could only move closer, trying to comfort her. Evelyn, I think I get what you're feeling right now. Deciding to leave Leo must have been hard. Like, as hard as it would be for me to stop having sex, starting today. Vesper watched as Evelyn, barefoot, stood up and walked to the window. There was a lost look in her eyes. Evelyn had dared to make such a brave decision. She never could. But Evelyn's next words completely blindsided her. Making me leave Leo? You might as well just stab me with a knife. Evelyn turned and sat on the windowsill, her smooth, bare legs dangling in the air. Even if it were the end of the world, I would have to die with him. Then why didn't you go with him? Because today was destined to happen 2 months ago. Evelyn hopped down from a sill, her slender frame absorbing the impact, though the 2 heavy burdens on her chest couldn't help but bounce. I've been constantly adjusting the treatment plan for Leo's amnesia. In reality, you can never be perfectly meticulous. The concert was a carefully considered idea, but it only restored his memories of Peyton. That was unexpected. I racked my brain to figure out the key, and it came down to Leo's own subjective initiative. Peyton's past is buried so deep, and its nature is so unique, possibly even dangerous, that Leo's subconscious was intensely curious about it. He wanted to eliminate a potential threat. The priority for everyone else was far lower. He could tell from our stories and our daily behavior whether the love was real. He felt that, aside from Peyton, none of the rest of us were threats. So, he lacked the deep-seated desire to recover those memories. What I'm doing now is manufacturing that desire. Vesper took a swig from her beer bottle. You mind gamers are terrifying, she muttered. But she was still confused. Will Leo believe you? No, Evelyn answered definitively. But he'll hesitate. And if he hesitates, he'll try to find the truth. And with that, the prerequisite, his subjective initiative, is in place. You really love him. Vesper, a woman obsessed with physical pleasure, couldn't comprehend this kind of love. She was genuinely curious. Is Leo really worth it? Evelyn's answer was a roundabout one. I could have been honest with Leo a long time ago. Do you know why I waited until now? That's not what I asked. It's the same question, Evelyn said, walking over and cracking open a can of beer for herself. Because I actually started to wonder how I could change myself. All human behavior is based on imitation and learning. Change requires a template. I envy a girl named Willow Shang. Her daily life is as calm as still water, but at critical moments, she dares to fight for what she wants. It wasn't hard to imagine that type of girl. Vesper easily sketched a rough image in her mind. You think Leo prefers that kind of girl? That kind of girl is the one most suited to stand beside him, Evelyn said, gently shaking her head. But I failed. I can't become someone else. My unique experiences have shaped who I am today. And I fell into a trap. All my changes were for Leo. But if I left his life, what meaning would that change have? So what does this have to do with whether he's worth it? You can never get what's worth it by chasing it, because the very concept of worth implies a calculation of gains and losses. That's why you'll never find a partner who makes you want to settle down. Because with every person you meet, every connection you form, the doubt of is it worth it will arise. The moment that doubt appears, the relationship is no longer worth it. Evelyn showed Vesper no mercy, just a relentless stream of analysis. She stretched, then collapsed onto the soft bed, hugging a pillow with a look of pure comfort. It feels so much better to be a creature of the shadows. The sunlight doesn't suit me. You're quite the schemer. When Leo finds out this was all a ploy to help him recover his memories, he'll be so moved he'll probably burst into tears, and you two can live happily ever after. Vesper didn't seem to hold a grudge. Instead, she raised her beer in a toast to Evelyn. She was truly envious. But Evelyn lay on the bed in silence, avoiding the topic. Vesper pressed on. What's with the silence? Don't tell me your story really was a lie. Of course there were lies in it. I mean the big picture. Are the core, critical parts lies? Evelyn still didn't answer. Instead, she sat up on the edge of the bed and stared at the window for a long time, without speaking. Finally, she said, Leo will make his own judgment. This journey of discovery will lead him to many things. This is my confession to him, an explanation for the true source of the pathological attachment between us. Leo flew back to Riverbend, determined to visit the orphanage himself. The old director, nearing retirement, was waiting for him at the entrance. He had come under the pretext of making a donation, which wasn't entirely a pretext because he really did donate. Besides the $1 million his father had presumptuously donated to smooth things over for his son, Leo personally gave $100,000. The $15 million he'd had was all tied up in Peyton's business venture. The cash in his bank account was the money Summerlin had paid him back, earnings he had made with his own two hands at the Cypress Lounge. Mrs. Sutton, I'm here to make a donation, but I was also hoping to ask about a few things, Leo began. Think of this place as your home. Please, sit wherever you like. It's my first time visiting. Sorry for the intrusion. Leo gave a polite nod. First time. The director, Mrs. Sutton, looked at him with a puzzled expression, which then softened into one of understanding. You're just like you were when you were little. Every time you got caught by security sneaking over the wall, you'd claim it was your first offense and you'd never do it again. Mrs. Sutton, are you talking about me? If not you, then who? You're saying I've been to this orphanage before. We even have your picture. Mrs. Sutton walked over to a photo wall and pulled a picture from the very edge, pointing to a little boy with a buzz cut. Isn't this you? Ma'am, this isn't the time for jokes. Leo took the photo with a trembling hand. He could vaguely make out his own features in the boy's face. A chill shot up his spine. A terrible story began to form in his mind, and the tsunami of shock that crashed over him was immense. Mrs. Sutton, excuse me for a moment. I need to make a call. Leo gritted his teeth and walked out of the office, his arms shaking as he dialed the most familiar number in his contacts. Mom, what is it, sweetie? Just tell me the truth. I know everything now. Leo, what are you talking about? Am I your biological son? The muscles in Leo's face twitched as he spoke. This was one of a man's 3 moments of ultimate vulnerability. Finding out you're not your parents' biological son, finding out your biological son was kidnapped, or finding out your son isn't your biological son. Mom, I won't blame you for hiding it from me. The gift of raising me is greater than anything. I just want to know the truth. As the words left his mouth, he felt completely drained. The other end of the line went silent. Then came a roar of laughter. Skylar's voice was impossible to contain. Leo, ha ha ha. You weren't born. You were a free toy in a McDonald's Happy Meal. I'm serious. Can you not make this worse? Leo squatted by the wall, staring up at the sky. There wasn't a single person in the world who could understand his pain. A different voice came on the line. Willow cleared her throat and whispered, Leo, maybe I should take you back to the Celestial Master Sanctuary. Can I do a DNA test at the sanctuary? I could ask the master to see if maybe your uncle brainwashed you. None of you get it. Human joys and sorrows are not universal. To Leo, they were just being loud. His mom finally took the phone back to lay down the law. I have a picture of you buck naked right after you were born. You want me to send it to you? Annie, I want to see it. Skylar immediately interjected. I want to see Leo's little thing. Get lost. Leo roared into the phone before turning his existential crisis back on his mother. Mom, the director of the orphanage, knows me. My picture is in her office. Back on the couch, Diane Miller was also stumped. What did her son have to do with an orphanage? She looked back and forth between the 2 young women beside her. Auntie, there must be a misunderstanding, Willow said reassuringly. Diane nodded. Of course there was a misunderstanding. She'd given birth to the boy. How could she not know? But Skylar proposed an alternative theory. Auntie, you know how in soap operas they always have a switched at birth plotline? Leo is kind of a low-budget prince. What if Grandpa Miller secretly adopted a baby from the orphanage and swapped out the real Leo? Diane's eyes widened. She was speechless. The idea was so outlandish that it took her a moment to process. But it almost sounded plausible. I need to ask Rick what's going on. Auntie, perfect timing. You can ask Uncle Rick when you two go out for dinner, Skylar said, her ulterior motive showing. But Diane just shook her head. He'd better give me a straight answer on this. Otherwise, there won't be any dinner. Mrs. Sutton, are you telling me the truth? It's the absolute truth. When you were little, you used to come to the orphanage all the time to play with Evelyn Shaw. And you just let me come and go as I pleased? Of course not. But, how should I put this? Because Evelyn's situation was so unique, everyone was happy to see her make a friend. So, I was actually doing you all a huge favor, wasn't I? Leo said, looking at her suspiciously. Mrs. Sutton gave an embarrassed laugh. You really were. Evelyn was so withdrawn and peculiar and a bit destructive. When she played with you, it saved the staff from having to watch her so closely. This is just unbelievable. Leo leaned back in his chair, his eyes drifting blankly across the countless photos on the wall before landing on the one in his hand. How old was I here? I don't remember exactly, but you must have been elementary school age. Leo didn't meet Summer Lynn until he was 12, which meant he and Evelyn had met long before Summer. They were the real childhood sweethearts. There was too much chaotic information swirling in his head. For a moment, he didn't know what to do, until Mrs. Sutton handed him a small lockbox. It was covered in rust spots, but it had clearly been wiped clean. Evelyn left this for you before she was adopted. She said to give it to you the next time you came. Then why are you only giving it to me now? Leo asked, taking the box with both hands. Because you never came back. In that instant, goosebumps erupted all over Leo's body. He looked out the window at the children running around the orphanage's recreation area. He looked down at the box in his hands. Before amnesia, after amnesia. 10 years ago, 10 years from now, when heavy words like time and space were all contained within this small box, Leo was struck by a profound sense of sorrow. For any person, their own self is their best friend. But how many unspeakable secrets were still buried in his memory? Never before had he wanted so desperately to recover what had been lost. I haven't looked inside this box. I think it's probably Evelyn's diary, Mrs. Sutton said, sipping her tea, lost in thought. Evelyn was the strangest child I've ever met. You could call her withdrawn, but she looked no different from any other child and was in some ways more mature. But her heart was guarded against everyone. Even when we brought in her aunt to help us talk to her, we could never figure out what she was truly thinking. Leo didn't try to force the small brass lock. Instead, his eyes instinctively went to the bottom of the box. There, 2 lines of small characters were carved into the wood, as if with a pocket knife. The first line read, "For Leo." The second, "When the funeral bell tolls, I hope my life will have no more secrets. P.S. Love you, E." Evelyn Shaw leaned against the fence outside a church, watching the pigeons on the ground. She held a small piece of Funyun in her hand, waving it in front of a bird that wasn't afraid of people, only to snatch it back at the last second. If pigeons could talk, they'd probably say, "Jerk, if you can't play fair, don't play at all." She had come with Vesper, who, lost in life, was starting to find religion. Evelyn, is it ridiculous to have faith? Faith is just a spiritual anchor. People need an anchor to keep from drifting. For some, it's anime. For some, it's family. For some, it's a dream. In the end, the substance is the same, only the form is different. Then what if I can't bring myself to say anything when I go to confession with the priest? I'll give you a demonstration. Evelyn walked into the church and approached the priest, speaking without hesitation. "Father, I'm a masochist." The priest's kindly expression froze for a split second. "Are you here for confession?" "I'm not confessing. I'm just showing her how it's done. I feel that since you're able to face the issue, you should also pray for God's forgiveness." "I don't have an issue," Evelyn said, shaking her head. "I believe you do." The priest, operating on the principle of saving every soul he could, tried to persuade her. "You are trapped in a state of suffering, unable to free yourself from being dominated. Masochism is, in essence, an extreme worship of the dominator. And the worship of people and things is a way to enslave oneself for a false sense of security and comfort. First, I am a priest. Second, we are in a church. Is this really the time or place for such talk?" "I'm not denying God," Evelyn said, closing her eyes and feeling the moisture in the air. She murmured, "Philosophical points of view arise from human behavior. It is because people act in certain ways that we can draw these conclusions. The world doesn't change just because someone proposes a seemingly enlightened philosophy." "I see. You're lost right now and hoping for an epiphany." "No, I'm sinking while wide awake." Evelyn's eyes snapped open, a serene smile spreading across her face. If indulging in worship can give me the security and comfort I've always longed for, then why shouldn't I? Just like a lost soul believes that faith in God can wash away their sins. It lessens their guilt, allowing them to live out their days with a false sense of spiritual absolution. Vesper stood by, completely bewildered. She felt bringing Evelyn here had been a huge mistake. She'd assumed that since Evelyn came to church often, she might have some advice. She hadn't expected her to come in and verbally dismantle both the priest and God. But, damn if it wasn't kind of hot. Sinking while wide awake. The phrase echoed in Vesper's mind. She took a small step out of the church, her expression complicated as she watched Evelyn's back. She thought she might be falling for her. Shaking her head to clear the jumbled thoughts, she asked humbly, "Evelyn, how can I have the same mindset as you? Be specific. I mean, the confidence. I thought you would be like me, ashamed of being a bad kid." Vesper, not all children are raised from the same template. Evelyn walked back to the church entrance, her head bowed against the sunlight, her hair swaying in the breeze. Everyone is a bad kid, because the moment a person defines themselves as a good kid, they're not far from a psychological disorder. Everyone inevitably experiences bad things in life. Poor grades, a hobby that gets ridiculed, a job that isn't respectable, a love that wallows in the mud, a past you can't bear to look back on. So many people's mental illnesses stem from this. I've seen people bullied online for loving anime, rejected by their parents for their sexual orientation, disowned for failing their college entrance exams, and even seen guys racked with guilt for being players. They worry about what others think and entertain suicidal thoughts because of the criticism. Were the people judging them good kids? No, because a truly good kid would never label someone as bad. In this age of amusing ourselves to death online, everyone gets a label. If you like anime, you're a disgusting nerd. If you have tattoos, you're a delinquent. If you like to go clubbing, you're a bad boy or a bad girl. These people stand on a moral high ground and judge everything. While you're lost in the small world of your hobby, they're lost in the small world of mocking you. You find joy in your interests. They find joy in laughing at you. Can you tell who's good and who's bad? They're just like God. Yes, the God in that church. Because both love to assign guilt, to slap the label of sin onto objective behaviors. Liking anime is a sin. Smoking, drinking, tattoos, all sins. Because when they condemn others, they feel a sense of superiority, a rush from being above it all. They find belonging and a twisted psychological comfort in collective judgment. Because these self-appointed gods aren't spotless either. They need this perverse superiority to feel free. Vesper stood frozen, her head bowed as she felt the turmoil in her heart. She looked at Evelyn, who seemed so frail in the cool winter sun, her sickly body trembling slightly in the dropping temperature, but it couldn't hide the gentle smile on her face. Evelyn continued, I donate to the orphanage regularly, but that doesn't mean I'm some great philanthropist. It's because I live that life, and I hope kids with the same experience can have it a little better. I only charge for my therapy sessions through social media. Of course, I want to see the pain on others' faces, but I also feel their psychological suffering so deeply that I help them escape it. Tell me, do any of these things change because I'm a masochist or because I got a tattoo? When you deconstruct Evelyn Shaw, are you more willing to see me as a psychologist who donates to an orphanage or a masochist with a tattoo? Vesper couldn't speak. The answer was obvious. She saw Evelyn as the former. But Evelyn's answer was, again, unexpected. I'm all of those things. Together, they form the real, non-idealized Evelyn Shaw. So, Vesper, I sincerely hope that you, and all the bad kids in the world, can accept your own existence. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to display only your best qualities in some virtual world to gain approval. Because authenticity will always have flaws. You don't need anyone's understanding, because their interpretation of you doesn't constitute 1/1,000,000th of your real life. Evelyn crouched down, once again pulling the bag of Funyuns from her purse and placing a few on the ground. But after a morning of being fed, the pigeons were probably full. I feed the pigeons bread, so I'm good. The pigeons don't eat, so they're bad. Evelyn, could you please not ruin your maternal goddess moment with some cynical, character-breaking line? That's something Leo used to say when he was very, very little. Sounds like him. Vesper scratched her head, annoyed. She used to be a little interested in Leo. I mean, he was a handsome guy. Who wouldn't want to taste? But now, in her eyes, Leo felt like a rival. Evelyn was just too captivating. How had she never noticed before how? Vesper hesitated, on the verge of saying something, but stopping herself. Evelyn saw right through her. Vesper, the reason you'd fall for me is because I'm the only one who gives you respect. You fall for whoever gives you respect. Is that wrong? Yes. Do you know why simps feel loved after just a few words from their goddess? Because they haven't learned to respect the flawed person within themselves. Evelyn shot Vesper a sideways glance. If I wanted to reel you in right now, I could play you like a fiddle, couldn't I? Huh. Vesper let out a heavy sigh. Why is it that we're both bad kids, but you and I are so different? Because you never met Leo. Leo taught you all this? The 1 millionth of your life stuff? Did he have that kind of vocabulary as a kid? He couldn't even read when I first met him, Evelyn said, shaking her head without elaborating. She crouched down, staring at the Funyun in her hand without a word. Her eyes held nothing but tenderness and devotion. P.S. Love, Tyler Durden. Why is there a bag of Funyuns in here? Leo scratched his head, looking at the snack pack lying next to the diary in the box. He was speechless. Don't ask how he opened the lock. Brute force. Mrs. Sutton had lost the key years ago. He sat down on a chair and opened the diary. The handwriting was elegant. Was Evelyn's handwriting this bad when she was a kid? Leo wondered. Mrs. Sutton, who had been waiting for an invitation to read along, pretended not to notice his curiosity. He finally spoke. Mrs. Sutton, why don't you? Evelyn left it for you. It wouldn't be right for me to read it. No, can I go read this outside? Your office feels like the principal's office. As a student, I feel a little constrained in here. You, go ahead. If you can't find a spot, just ask any of the staff. Thank you, Mrs. Sutton. Leo grabbed the diary and left. Perfect. He couldn't stand her faux polite act. I, Leo Miller, officially have a prejudice against Sundaras. Come with me. He walked into the orphanage courtyard. The facility seemed pretty well funded. At least, on his way in, he hadn't seen any dilapidated buildings or graffiti-covered walls. Riverbend must have a lot of generous people. He looked around for a place to sit, but couldn't find one. He walked over to a swing set and was about to sit down when a small voice stopped him. Mister, you're not allowed to sit on this swing. A little girl had been following him curiously and rushed over to stop him. Why can't I sit on it? Can't it hold an adult's weight? Mrs. Sutton says this swing is very old. We can only look at it, not sit on it. Oh, okay. Leo took her advice. But the word old stuck in his mind. If it was that old, had he sat on it too? He decided to just sit on the ground, leaning against the swing set's support pole, and open the diary. March 12th. Sonny, I finally made it to the orphanage. I can escape my aunt's house. The environment here isn't great, and there are a lot of other kids. Mom said that when I'm scared, I can pray, and God will protect every child. I prayed today. Leo smiled as he read, feeling like he was watching a documentary of Evelyn's childhood. It was kind of fun, but when he turned the page, he saw that it jumped directly to the next year. Were pages missing? Torn out? It felt like reading a novel, getting hooked, and then discovering several pages had been ripped out. Infuriating. Normally, this would be an unsolvable problem, but Leo could solve it, because he knew the author. This world really was all about who you knew. He dialed Evelyn's number. Evelyn, why is your diary the censored version? Censored? Yeah, I finished one page, and it jumped straight to the next year. It's not censored. My writing skills were just terrible back then, so writing in a diary was a lot of effort. I didn't write much that year. Well, can you at least give me the gist? You know what? Never mind. I'll figure it out myself. Okay. Leo and Evelyn had reached a strange new understanding. Because of the repeated deceptions and conflicting stories, even if Evelyn told the absolute truth now, Leo would have to hesitate before believing her. So, he decided to just not listen at all. He'd find out himself. By the way, what's with the bag of Funyuns? It's in the diary. You'll see. Fine. Bye. Leo opened the diary again, this time deciding to read it like a school assignment. A technique his teachers had taught him. Read with a question in mind. This time, he found it. June 1st. I snuck out of the orphanage when the kitchen staff left the back gate open to receive a delivery. I had $10 I brought from my aunt's house. I was planning to make it last. When I got hungry, I'd buy a couple bags of Funyuns. I want to find a big supermarket because the cashiers at big stores are too busy to notice me. The owners of small shops are always bored, and when they see a kid buying something, they always ask where my parents are. I don't like people asking about my parents. At the big supermarket, I saw a little boy. He was staring at a bottle of Coke, drooling. He was so mesmerized he didn't even notice the snot running into his mouth. He looked really small and short, only up to my shoulder. But he definitely wasn't a stray kid like me. Even though he had snot on his face, his clothes were clean. He definitely had a mom and dad. Kids without parents don't have anyone who cares if their clothes are clean. This kid didn't wipe his nose. I didn't like that. His pants were also bunched up in his butt crack and had dirt on them. He'd clearly just gotten up off the floor. The moment he saw me, his face lit up like I was his savior. He said, "Hey, Can you help me get a Coke down? That's when I realized he didn't have no money for Coke. He just couldn't reach it. He was too short. I pretended not to hear him. I was actually scared to talk to him. Whether at my aunt's or at the orphanage, I would often sneak out. And my aunt and Mrs. Sutton would always tell me the same thing. The outside world is dangerous. I thought so too. Last time, some man on the stairs exposed himself to me. A total pervert. I just wanted to find a quiet place where I didn't have to talk to anyone. But this boy was so annoying. He kept following me. Hey. Who was his hey? From Evelyn Shaw's diary. In the end, I ignored the little brat that day. He was too annoying. I watched coldly as he asked a store employee to get the Coke down for him. I turned and bought 2 bags of Funyuns. But I miscalculated. I don't know if the cashier was bored or just overly friendly, but as she rang me up, she said, "Are your mom and dad at work? Why are you out shopping all by yourself?" I didn't say anything. I just turned and walked out of the store. I hate it when people ask about my parents. And I hated the snot-nosed brat standing by the entrance drinking his Coke even more. I've had Coke before. I don't like the gross taste. But this kid was savoring it like it was the most delicious thing on earth. After every sip, he'd smack his lips and quickly twist the cap back on, as if he was afraid the fizz would escape. I was about to walk past him, but he started talking to me again. "Hey, you want some Coke?" I ignored him. He kept going. "Hey, can I trade the rest of my Coke for one of your bags of Funyuns?" I finally lost my patience. "If you want some, why don't you just buy them yourself?" It was 8 o'clock at night now. It had been over 12 hours since I'd first seen him that morning, but I still remembered the look in his eyes. It was different from everyone else's. My aunt saw me as a bad kid, her eyes full of suspicion and fear. Mrs. Sutton saw me as a child who needed saving, her eyes full of pity and helplessness. But this kid's eyes had none of that, because I felt like he didn't see me as a person. He looked at me like I was an idiot. "It's because I don't have any money, duh. The half bottle of Coke I have left is worth $1.50. Your bag of Funyuns is only 50 cents. If I had money, I wouldn't make a bad deal like this." Could you really calculate it like that? I was confused, but I wasn't going to agree. I don't like Coke, and I especially don't like Coke that someone else has already drunk. This snot-nosed brat, looking like something out of a cartoon, wiped his nose on his sleeve and looked at me with hopeful eyes. I, of course, gave him the cold shoulder, but I underestimated his desire for those Funyuns. He ran circles around me like a hyper little dog, begging me to trade with him. No matter how far I walked, he followed. He was relentless. I had come out to find a quiet place to be alone, but with him around, I couldn't get any peace. So I subconsciously started walking back toward the orphanage. But I completely forgot that I wasn't supposed to let anyone know I didn't have parents. When he looked up and saw the big sign for the children's home, his face was full of surprise. In that moment, I knew I was screwed. He was going to ask me a storm of questions. How did your parents die? Is it fun being an orphan? But he just looked up, surprised, and didn't say a word. The suspense of waiting made my heart pound. I'd been in this situation too many times before. I said, "If you have a question, just ask it." He said, "Hey, your house is really big." I said, "Is it fun to make fun of people?" I naturally took it as a taunt. I had long ago felt the world's malice, so I always assumed the worst of others. This boy was being sarcastic. His complimentary tone couldn't hide the mockery, until I saw the fleeting, clueless expression on his face. I suddenly realized something. I said, "Read what it says up there." His face flashed with evasion again. He said, "Don't look down on me, I can't read." I said, "Then read it." I saw him stick out his fingers, clearly trying to count how many words were on the sign. His lips trembled slightly. He said it. "It says, Leo's Community." I said, "There are clearly 5 words up there, and you only said 2. He said, "Then it's Leo's Riverbend Community, number 3. I said, "That's 4. He was utterly defeated, his head hanging in shame. The little brat couldn't even lie properly because he couldn't read. But his illiteracy was a huge advantage for me. I told him, it's called the Riverbend Hope Community. I didn't want anyone to know I lived in an orphanage. But he found the hole in my story. He said, "That's 4 words. The sign has 5. I was trying to think of a response when he cut me off. He said, "I got it. It's called the Riverbend Hope Supersized Community, right?" I looked at his face and gave a pained nod, even though that was 6 words. And I could tell he was just trying to save face for not being able to read. But I accepted it, as long as my secret was safe. But I underestimated this brat's cleverness. He saw my reluctant nod and instantly got anxious. He said he'd give himself 1 night, and he'd definitely be able to read those words. He was going to go home and learn right now. He would come back tomorrow to prove it to me. I was already annoyed with this kid, and now he was planning to come back tomorrow and announce the name of the orphanage in front of me. I had to find a way to stop him. I said, "Can you please stop bothering me? You're not allowed to come here anymore." I saw his face fall instantly, like a wilted flower. I thought that would be enough, but I underestimated his boundless energy again. He said, "I can't even come play with you." I said, "I don't like playing with kids who can't read yet." What I really meant was that he was too young, but that just ignited his competitive spirit. He turned to leave and threw one last sentence over his shoulder. "I'll definitely be able to read by tomorrow. You just wait." I sighed in frustration and grabbed his arm to stop him. He absolutely could not come back to the orphanage tomorrow. I said, "Don't you want to trade for my Funyuns? I'll give you a bag, just don't come back tomorrow." He waved his hand and said no, that wasn't fair. He said, "My mom only gives me $3 every time I go out, but I want to drink Coke and eat Funyuns at the same time. So I won't trade with you today. We'll trade tomorrow. I'll save today's Coke bottle, and when I buy Coke tomorrow, I'll pour some into the old bottle to drink and use the remaining half to trade with you for a bag of Funyuns." I nodded and said okay, on the condition that he wouldn't come to the orphanage again. He seemed relieved, too. Clearly, the pressure of learning to read was a bit much for him. And just like that, I inexplicably agreed to a Coke for Funyuns plan with a little brat. Before he left, he gave me his empty Coke bottle and told me to bring it to the supermarket for him tomorrow. He said, "If my mom sees me sneaking Coke, I'll definitely get in trouble." I nodded helplessly. I watched him wipe his snotty nose and leave with a huge grin. The setting sun stretched the shadow of the waddling little brat, who paused to pull his pants out of his butt crack. I knew that from today on I might have something to do. I'll stop here for tonight. I have to go to bed early. I have to sneak out tomorrow during the kitchen delivery to trade Cokes with him. But I forgot to ask his name. I'll just call him the little brat. Oh, and the weather today was nice. There's a big moon outside my window. I hope I don't dream about Funyuns. I cursed the little brat to dream that he's trapped in a desert, and in the distance, there's a bottle of Coke he can see but never drink. Annoying little kid. I snuck out again, but I forgot the little brat's Coke bottle. It's not that I forgot. I left it on my desk, but the staff member cleaning up must have thrown it away. I figure I'd just give him a free bag of Funyuns. As I got close to the supermarket, I saw the little brat waving at me from a distance. He had changed out of the snot-stained shirt from yesterday. He was wearing clean clothes. His mom must have nagged him about wiping his nose on his sleeve while she took off his dirty shirt and put on a clean one. I looked down at my own clothes. I hadn't changed. Unless your clothes were disgustingly dirty, none of the staff would tell you to change. He grinned at me, shaking the Coke in his hand to show me he'd already bought it. He motioned for me to hurry up and buy the Funyuns. I told him straight up, "The old Coke bottle is gone. I'll just give you a free bag of Funyuns today." I had already prepared myself for his reaction. This brat talked a lot and would definitely harp on this. If I had to, I'd buy him 2 bags to make up for it. But to my surprise, the little brat just nodded blankly and said, "Oh." I couldn't stand his sarcastic tone. He was clearly mocking me for not keeping my promise. I'd seen that kind of hidden ridicule plenty of times. Whenever I made a mistake, my aunt wouldn't say anything. She'd just sigh helplessly, as if I had committed a mortal sin. I said, "Don't talk to me like that. If you have something to say, just say it. Hey, why are you so worked up? If you didn't bring it, you didn't bring it. Stop being sarcastic. I know what you mean." My guard went up instantly. "But if you didn't bring it, you didn't bring it. I forget to bring my water bottle to preschool all the time." The little brat wasn't at all surprised that I didn't have the bottle. "My mom says it's okay to forget your water bottle. Just remember to bring it next time." This felt unreal. I had already planned my response for when he blamed me. But he didn't blame me. I stood there, flustered, not knowing what to do. "My mom says people who are forgetful get punished," the little brat suddenly said, leaning in. Hearing the familiar word punishment finally calmed me down. I waited for him to deliver the sentence. "The punishment is, you don't get the good fortune of drinking Coke today." The reason he's called the little brat is because he's so damn punchable. Watching him sit on the steps with his legs crossed, his short little body soaking in the sun, eyes closed as he occasionally took a sip of Coke. I wanted to kick him. "Your mom is spoiling you." "No way. My mom always says she's sorry to me, even though I don't know what she's sorry for. Someone who disciplines you is someone who really loves you." As I said this, I thought of my aunt. Sometimes I would ask her to stop yelling at me, and she would say, "This is because your auntie loves you. After your mom and dad died, who else is going to look after you?" The little brat said, "My mom disciplines me sometimes." I said, "No, when you make a mistake, you should be yelled at. That's what my aunt does." The little brat froze. He said, "She yells at you for something like forgetting a water bottle?" I nodded. The expression on the little brat's face was one of pure shock. He didn't say it was wrong, and he didn't say it was right. His little body was so short his head couldn't even reach the second step. His face was still chubby with baby fat, but he put on a world-weary expression and said, "Your aunt doesn't sound like a good person." He said, "I'm not going to blame you. If you don't bring it today, bring it tomorrow. But if you don't bring it tomorrow, then that's not okay, because the day after that my mom won't let me come out and play. I didn't say anything. I was calculating the days in my head. In 2 days, I could be free of this little brat. He's really not coming, I thought to myself, hesitating before asking. The day after tomorrow. What are you doing? I swear, I wasn't curious about why I wouldn't see him. I was just asking. The day after tomorrow, my mom is working the day shift. I have to make dinner for her. You can cook? You're so little. What about your dad? My dad's dead. The little brat's expression didn't change. He just tilted his head back and enjoyed his Coke. I didn't know what to say. I was older than him. The polite thing to do would be to comfort him. But I just couldn't get the words out. Cooking must be hard, was the best comfort I could manage. It's not hard. I just have to stand on a stool. Our stove is too high. The little brat tilted his head to look at me. And I get a reward. My mom doesn't want me to cook, but she works so hard. So she says she'll give me a reward. The little brat pointed to the Coke bottle in his hand and grinned proudly. Haha, hardworking kids get Coke. A reward? A reward from a parent to a child. I had never heard of that before. You don't get yelled at for making a mistake, and you get a reward for doing something right? Faced with my confusion, the little brat was baffled. He explained, You've never gotten a reward before? If you bring the bottle tomorrow, I'll give you a reward. Deal. I wanted to experience that feeling. The feeling of a reward. What are you going to reward me with? I'll give you extra Coke. I don't like Coke. But Coke is all I have. The little brat was a loss. He said, When my mom rewards me, she gives me $3 and pats my head and says, Son, you did a great job. I want the second part, I said in a low voice. The little brat seemed to understand. He stood up, patted my head, and said, Son, you did a great job. Who's your son? I slapped his arm away and turned my head in a huff. He just stood there, giggling stupidly. But I suddenly felt like I was about to cry. I thought, tomorrow, I have to bring the bottle. I have to. P.S. Love, your little brother. Leo stared at the diary, his expression a complicated mix. This strange plot development made him want to laugh, but he couldn't. The illiterate little brat and the withdrawn older girl from the orphanage. He stood up and surveyed the grounds, trying to connect with his childhood self. The orphanage wasn't actually that big, at least not compared to a housing community. But a child's perspective is different from an adult's. He walked over to the large, mottled iron gate and ran his hand over the rust. He called over one of the children, the same little girl who had told him not to sit on the swing. Hey kid, can you stand by the gate for me? I want to see where you have to stand to see the whole sign. Leo figured the girl was about the same height as he'd been back then. He followed her and stood at the main entrance, looking up. The blinding sun made him squint. The light refracted through the glass shards embedded on top of the wall, a dreamlike web of light converging in his eyes. Leo smiled without saying anything. He walked back to his spot and continued reading the diary. Mister, are you here to adopt a kid? The little girl with pigtails wasn't shy at all. In fact, she was quite cheerful. She said, If you want to adopt a daughter, you can keep me in mind. Leo chuckled at her innocent words. What's your name? You can call me Lily. You're pretty sharp. When I was your age, I couldn't even read. Of course. Sister Evelyn gave me my name. The Sister Evelyn you're talking about. Is that Evelyn Shaw? Yes. Sister Evelyn sponsors a group of kids every year, and she even gives us online counseling sessions. But I've never seen her in person. Lily chewed on her finger as she imagined it. Sister Evelyn must be a super pretty lady. I'd say she's average. No way. She's a super pretty lady. Lily got worked up, planting her hands on her hips in a huff. A super pretty lady who is kind-hearted, warm, and lovely. I won't argue with you there. I don't want you to adopt me anymore. Lily turned and ran off, her 2 small pigtails bouncing in the air. Leo watched her go, a smile playing on his lips. It seemed the kids at the orphanage were doing pretty well psychologically. To be able to talk about adoption so casually at such a young age meant they probably weren't too jaded. Only someone who's been rained on knows to hold an umbrella for others because they know how to keep it from tilting. People were just full of contradictions the more you got to know them. And Evelyn was more contradictory than most, donating money and offering counseling. Those things didn't seem like something she would waste her energy on. The tattoo parlor and the orphanage. The parlor had a psychedelic, cyberpunk vibe, luxurious and stylish. But it was filled with people chasing niche fetishes, living for the moment. They had bright futures, but were hell-bent on enjoying the present. The orphanage was full of warmth and sunlight, but it was filled with kids who had no home. They had no future, but they were full of hope for it. Who was right and who was wrong? That wasn't for Leo to decide. Every path was a valid one in this world. But both paths existed within one woman named Evelyn Shaw. Curiosity. That was Leo's first feeling. Because he had seen both environments with his own eyes, he felt this intense sense of dissonance. He had originally come to verify the truth of Evelyn's story. But now, he wanted to set aside the Evelyn and his memories and truly understand her story from a new perspective. Based on the diaries so far, Leo still had a lot of questions. For example, if they had known each other since they were children, how did Evelyn become the person she was today? Better to read than to guess. He continued, July 21 SD. I'm up. I hid the Coke bottle under my blankets last night to keep the cleaning staff from taking it. Oh, and I changed my clothes today. Clean ones. I snuck out again. But since I'd snuck out 2 days in a row, I was caught without any trouble this time. The head cook saw me hiding behind a cardboard box and took me to Mrs. Sutton. Mrs. Sutton was very concerned. She knelt down and asked me, Do you miss your aunt? Are you unhappy at the orphanage? I said, No, I just wanted to go for a walk. I really did just want to go for a walk. There were too many people at the orphanage and it was too loud. I don't like crowds. There was no space for me to be alone. Mrs. Sutton saw my stubbornness, and the look of pity in her eyes was unmistakable. She saw me as a child with serious psychological problems. Because when other kids got bullied, they would either tell the staff, cry, or at most get into a fight. Only I would set their beds on fire. It was the only way to stop the bullying. Mrs. Sutton couldn't get anything out of me, because I really did just sneak out to go for a walk. But then she noticed a bottle in my hand. She asked me, Why are you holding an empty bottle? I shook my head and refused to answer. Trading half a bottle of Coke for a bag of Funyuns. If that little brat did it, people would just laugh and say he was cute. But if a girl my age did it, they would just laugh. Mrs. Sutton asked if I was collecting bottles to sell for scrap money. I nodded. That was a good enough explanation. But then, to my surprise, Mrs. Sutton told me, You can sneak out, but you have to tell me beforehand. And you can't tell the other children. I never expected that. I couldn't help but laugh. Seeing my expression, Mrs. Sutton couldn't help but laugh too. I felt like she saw right through me. After leaving Mrs. Sutton's office, I walked right out the side gate of the orphanage. I walked alone on the sidewalk. I had a date to keep. A secret, embarrassing appointment had become the only thing I looked forward to in my life. And the person I was looking forward to seeing was an illiterate little brat. And the appointment itself was even more ridiculous. But I went anyway, and the little brat didn't show up. I sat on the empty steps, not knowing what to do. My first thought was to go back to the orphanage. But why did I sneak out in the first place? To not be at the orphanage. Why would I go back just because he didn't come? But what else was I supposed to do? Wander around like before? He was the one who wanted the Funyuns in the first place. He was the one who insisted on trading. I agreed to trade, and he didn't even show up. I wanted to use the most extreme methods to make the person who hurt me apologize. That was what I thought at the time. But then a soft little hand landed on my head. You brought the bottle today. Great job. When I turned my head, I saw a panting cartoon character. That little brat really looked like a cartoon. Sorry, I woke up late. I was bugging my mom to teach me how to read last night. Read? My heart sank. I asked him, Did you learn the name of our community? He looked troubled. Clearly, the pressure of learning was getting to him. It was hard to imagine a kid who couldn't even read having such a complex expression. He sighed, scratched his plaid shirt, and said with difficulty, almost. I couldn't help but want to laugh. But I held it in, because I hadn't punished him yet. He was the one who was late today. Kid, you're late today. Hey, it wasn't on purpose. Besides, we didn't agree on a time. Were you late or not? My stern face scared him a little. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't need your apology. Just don't be late again. I've been holding all that in just to say that. I wanted to tell him, it's okay that you were late this time, just don't be late next time. But the words that came out of my mouth sounded different. I sat on the steps, dejected and silent. A little brat who was only up to my shoulder was patting my head. He kept patting until his arm went numb, and I didn't tell him to stop. He said with a pained expression, Hey, my arm is asleep. I turned and glared at him, my eyes telling him not to stop. In that moment, I knew, you can't just become the person you want to be. But it didn't matter. I got my reward. It was worth getting caught by Mrs. Sutton. The sun shone on my body. The sound of car horns on the street was like 10,000 trumpets blowing in my ears. A little brat was patting my head. Because I had kept my promise, I got a reward. I read a lot of books in my spare time, because I had a lot of spare time. I knew this was cause and effect, the most basic law of the universe. At this moment, in a world made up of everything, I had truly become a working part of it. I felt alive, not because I was physiologically still breathing or my blood was still flowing, but because, without needing any proof, I clearly knew. I was alive. July 22 ND. The little brat can't come out today. He has to stay home, and cook for his mom. I'm not going out. Don't think that the only reason I sneak out of the orphanage is to see the little brat. It's just that without him, there's no point in going out. Scratched out. I'm tired. I don't want to go out. I ate breakfast with the orphanage teachers, went to morning class, and had my regular checkup. The doctor told me to not worry so much and to eat more iron-rich foods. She said I was unhealthy. I think that's a good thing. It's not so bad if I can leave this world a little earlier. There's nothing in this world worth holding on to. As I thought this, I glanced at the empty Coke bottle on my desk. An image of a punchable little brat appeared in my mind. He was so small, short, talked a lot, and was annoying. There were a lot of annoying kids his age at the orphanage, but he was annoying in a different way from the others. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Today's focus isn't the little brat, but a boy named Donnie. He's a little taller than the little brat and a little older. He's the king of the kids at the orphanage. Donnie saw me leaving through the side gate yesterday, and today he's been spreading rumors everywhere, saying I sneak out because I'm a bad girl. A bunch of disgusting kids were jumping around in front of me. Let them jump. Once I set a fire in your room, you'll stop jumping. Why do I always choose fire? Because when I first came to the orphanage and we had to share our personal stories, I tried to tell them what happened. But in the ears of these annoying kids, it naturally turned into me burning my parents to death. Children are the most disgusting things in the world, including me. After dinner, I was about to go set the fire, but then Mrs. Sutton found me. She sat down at the table across from me and asked, "How come you didn't go out today?" I shook my head and said I was tired. But then Mrs. Sutton said something completely unexpected. "That little boy is very young. It's not safe for you two to be playing outside all the time. Would you like me to invite him to the orphanage to play together?" Mrs. Sutton had been following me. I stood up with a cold face and left. This world is so disgusting. I snuck out of the orphanage again because I didn't want to be there. But where was I supposed to go? In the end, I walked to that familiar supermarket and sat on the steps without saying a word. I sat there from morning until afternoon, watching the sun move from east to west. 735 people passed by me. 43 of them came over to ask what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing either. If I had somewhere else to go, I wouldn't have come here. As night fell, the cold made my teeth chatter. I've always been afraid of the cold. I'm very weak. But the appearance of a familiar figure ignited a spark in me. I thought I would share my day's experiences with him. I would tell him that there's a group of annoying stray dogs near the supermarket entrance. I would tell him that at the orphanage, our community, there's an annoying kid named Donnie. But the little brat was surrounded by a large group of kids. They were all from the nearby Riverbend estates. The little brat seemed to be their leader, too. I ducked my head down, trying not to be seen. Seeing naive kids his age just made me sick. He didn't see me either. He stood in the middle of the group of kids, hands on his hips, playing with some little cards, Pokemon or something. He could have fun without me. Without him, I could only sit here and watch the sun rise and set. I left without a sound. I wandered the streets and quietly returned to the orphanage. I didn't want to set fire to Donnie's room anymore. It was pointless. I just wanted to lie in bed and be quiet for a while. But as I passed by Donnie, he jumped out and taunted me. "Hey, what kind of bad things were you doing sneaking out?" I didn't fight back. I walked to my room and found the lighter from the crack in the floorboards. In the dead of night, I will start a great fire and die peacefully in it. If I could have died in that fire with my parents, I wouldn't be called the one who jinxed her mom and dad. I wouldn't have caused my grandmother's death. I wouldn't be a burden to my aunt. I wouldn't have to lie in this dark room, wondering where to go tomorrow. In this moment, I can't find a reason to live, so I should be buried in a great fire. I hope for an eternally burning flame, so I can scream and wail in it. When my life is no longer determined by the breath in my lungs or the blood in my veins, only pain will be the sole proof of my existence in this world. The fire was never set. The little brat put it out. I swear, next time, no one will stop me. But not this time, because Mrs. Sutton said a group of kids were secretly investigating something, and the leader was that little friend of mine. I stood inside the wall, listening to the chatter of the kids outside. "Tiger, didn't you say you could read?" "Leo, I know the word Riverbend. I know Riverbend too. What about the rest?" "Leo, I have an idea. We can copy down the words and show them to an adult. How about that?" "Fine, you write them down." "Leo, maybe you should pick someone else. I don't know how to write." The group of kids was stumped. I listened to their bickering and couldn't help but smile. I walked right out. I didn't say anything because I was still mad at the little brat. But when the little brat saw me, his face was filled with alarm. He screamed, "Retreat." He turned and ran with his gang. I caught him. His legs were so short, there was no way he could outrun me. I asked him, "What are you running for?" He said, "Hey, I know you don't want me to figure out the words on the sign, but I was just too curious. Please forgive me." I was stunned. I knelt down and looked at this clever little kid. He was so punchable. I pinched his cheek. It was so chubby. I don't know where I got the courage, but I told him, this is an orphanage. I'm an orphan with no parents. The moment I revealed my biggest secret, I was both relieved and plunged into an abyss. Because now, this little brat, to satisfy his curiosity, might unintentionally ask a lot of questions. Questions that would be like pouring salt on my wounds. But to my surprise, the little brat scratched his head, and after some deep thought, he stated with certainty, I'm an orphan too. You're not an orphan. If my dad's dead, I can't be an orphan. The little brat's expression was 3 parts confusion and 7 parts defiance, as if gaining the title of orphan was like competing for a throne. You're only an orphan if your mom is dead too. My mom can't die. The little brat shook his head vigorously. He proposed a bold idea. What if my dad dies twice? Does that count? How can a person die twice? Like on TV, he dies normally once, then comes back to life as a zombie, and then gets killed again by a Buddha. It's a priest who kills zombies. You've got your shows mixed up. Sometimes the priest can't beat the zombie, but Buddha can beat even the Monkey King. He can definitely make my dad die for good. When I was with this little brat, I always found myself laughing through my frustration. I asked him, why do you want to be an orphan? He put his hands on his hips, pointed to the orphanage gate, and gave a very reasonable explanation. Only orphans can go into an orphanage. I want to go in. What do you want to go in for? Are you dumb? If I want to play with you, of course I have to go to your house to find you. You want to play with me? Yeah, you're not from my neighborhood. I can't just yell for you from downstairs. I'm asking why you want to play with me. You're my friend. When did I become your friend? I resisted the label he had so casually attached to me. The word was still too foreign to me. I never agreed to be your friend. Do you agree now? If you agree, I'll come find you tomorrow to play, and you can teach me how to read. The words came so easily from the little brat's mouth, but for me they were so hard. I couldn't speak or shake my head to agree, but he was so punchable. He just said, if you don't say anything, I'll take that as a yes. You can't get in. I have my ways. The little brat pointed to himself confidently. I agreed by default. I looked at the group of friends waiting for him in the distance and told him they were waiting. He said, then I'll go home first. I nodded, feeling a little uncomfortable in my heart, a feeling like something was being taken away from me. He had a lot of friends. I only had him, but he had brought his friends here and had them call me Big Sister. This is a big sister who can read. She'll teach us how to write later. The other kids were clearly not interested in reading. In their minds, you'd learn how to read and write in school eventually. Why learn so early? When the other kids called me Big Sister, I didn't even respond. Only when the little brat called me Big Sister would I give a soft image. I liked it when he called me Big Sister. July 23 RD. I never, ever expected him to show up. The little brat. He climbed the wall to get in. When I saw him on the swing set, pumping his legs like a madman, my brain just short-circuited. What was happening? What shocked me even more was who was pushing him. Donnie. He traded a pack of Pokemon cards for Donnie's undying loyalty. To be honest, we didn't really play together. The 4-year age gap was a canyon between us. But I could sit there quietly, which was fine, since I didn't like playing anyway. He immediately became one of the pack, laughing and running with all the other kids at the home. I just sat on a swing and watched him from a distance. The air smelled warm, like sunshine. July 24th. The little brat came again. I tried to teach him how to write. He looked like I just sentenced him to death. July 25th. He scrawled his name in wobbly letters. So that's what it was. Leo. July 26th. The little brat didn't come. He had to cook for his mom. But I went to Riverbend Estates. I went to his house for the first time. He told me to lie on his bed and take a nap. I washed his smelly socks for him. He said, "You're so nice, sis." I thought if things could stay like this forever, it would be perfect. July 27th. Mrs. Sutton caught Leo climbing the wall, but she agreed to let him come and go as he pleased. Leo, his pants covered in dirt from the wall, immediately hugged her leg and told her she was the best person in the whole world. He knew how to sweet-talk women even back then. Ugh, you little brat, you make me sick. I ignored him on purpose. He tugged on my arm, asking what was wrong. That felt good. July 28th. Leo and I spent the morning by the river. I learned more about his family. His mom was too busy to look after him much. He called me sis, so I looked after him. I told him he needed to stop messing around with all those other girls. I didn't care about other stuff, like how he hated learning to write. I figured that was normal. What kid wants to study? But flirting with girls? That was a serious problem. To get him to focus, I promised him 2 Cokes if he could learn to read 500 words. Just stay here and study with me, you little dummy. Later, we were on the swings. I usually have heart palpitations, so I almost never go on them. When I told Leo this, he just nodded and said, "Okay, then you push me." I plopped right down on the swing seat. I'd swing until I died before I'd push you, you little brat. July 29th. I'm being adopted. When Mrs. Sutton told me, I couldn't believe it. She said a girl my age should have been in school a long time ago. It was only because of my poor health and my issues that I hadn't been enrolled. The children's home didn't have the resources to get me the special help I needed. At first, I resisted. I just stared at the floor, not saying a word. But then I nodded. No one understands the problems that come with being an orphan better than an orphan. If I weren't an orphan, could I live in a nice neighborhood like Leo? Could I invite him over to my house? And he was about to start school. I needed to go too. The home couldn't send me, so I had to have adoptive parents. I agreed. I met them. They drove a huge car and seemed really rich. I nodded without a second's hesitation. Very few people were willing to adopt an older, rebellious kid who'd been sent away by her aunt for starting a fire. Besides them, I had no other choice. I thought everything would go exactly as I planned, but it didn't. My adoptive parents' house, while still in Riverbend, was miles and miles away from Riverbend Estates. That meant I probably wouldn't be able to see Leo anymore. I wouldn't be able to go to the same school. A knot of guilt started to form in my stomach. How was I supposed to explain all this to a little kid? How could I tell him that this was the only way for me to change my fate? To stop being an orphan? I didn't know. I'd figure out tomorrow. July 30th. My new parents are coming to pick me up tomorrow. Leo came to the home today, but I took him out. I was afraid he'd hear the other kids talking about me being adopted. He told me he was starting school soon, so he probably wouldn't have as much time to visit. Any other day, hearing that would have felt like being abandoned. But today, it was a relief. You have to study hard, I told him. I knew I was dodging the real issue, but I just didn't know how to face a goodbye. I just knew I had to go to school, and being adopted was my only chance. He said, Sis, let's go to the store the day after tomorrow. I have to cook for my mom tomorrow, and then I'll have $3. I'll trade you for some Funyuns. Okay, I said. Relief washed over me. I wouldn't have to see him tomorrow. July 31st. It's early morning. I'm going to finish today's entry and then give this diary to Mrs. Sutton. I'll ask her to give it to Leo for me. I want to give it to him yesterday, but I forgot. Even without me, he'll probably still come. All the kids at the home love playing with him. I hope you're not too surprised when you read this tomorrow. Leo, my secrets are in here. I'm giving them to you for safekeeping. Just for a little while. The day I can finally control my own destiny, I'll come back and get it. And I'll bring you my new diaries to read, too. I'll show you all the things I went through by myself. That's the value of a secret. Leo, forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye. I'll try my best not to be a bad kid. I hope to see you again. The diary ended there. A storm of emotions churned inside Leo. So much for the simple idea that he was just naturally irresistible. After losing his memory, he naively assumed all these women were devoted to him simply because he was him, like they'd been put under a spell. Where are the rest of the diaries? Leo muttered, scratching his head. He was about to call Evelyn when he looked up and saw Mrs. Sutton walking toward him. So, how does it feel to relive your childhood memories? Leo gave a small laugh, not mentioning his amnesia. He just sat down on the swing next to her. I remember that bag of Funyuns very clearly. It was the day her adoptive parents came to get her, and you just happened to show up at the gate. I was there that day. Of course. I think Donnie snuck over to your house to get you. And what happened then? At the question, Mrs. Sutton seemed to recall something amusing. She looked up at the willow tree as the wind rustled its branches. Right under this tree, you were hugging her adoptive father's leg, begging him, please, mister, be nice to her. Don't let her go hungry. I was that dumb as a kid. You were the most confident child I'd ever met. I actually looked into your family background back then. Of course, looking back now, my understanding was far too shallow. But I don't think growing up should mean losing that confidence, Leo. I'm still pretty confident, I think, Leo offered, hesitating. But Mrs. Sutton looked him straight in the eye, as if searching for something. Leo, I've seen all kinds of children over the years. Your eyes tell me what's in your heart. Mrs. Sutton, that's getting a little too mystical for me. You're right, I'm rambling. The point is, I hope you and Evelyn can end up together. Her tone shifted instantly from professional educator to neighborhood matchmaker. Getting older does that to people. Leo, that morning, Evelyn left me the box with a bag of instant noodles inside. That day, you gave her the $3 from your pocket. I've always wanted to know, what were two little kids like you thinking and feeling? Were you terribly sad? Leo shook his head and stood up, hopping back on the swing and letting it sway. He'd forgotten, but he could still answer the question, because he was still him. I don't think we were sad. It probably felt just like today, a warm, sunny day. It felt like a simple goodbye, nothing more. I suppose. Children don't understand how hard it can be to see someone again. Even if we knew, we wouldn't have been sad. Leo didn't know how to explain it, but he suddenly understood what Mrs. Sutton meant about his lost confidence. It wasn't that his confidence was gone. It was that everyone loses something as they grow up. The couple who promised to see the ocean together, the childhood friends who swore in their secret fort that they'd get rich together. They probably all knew the road ahead was hard, but they didn't believe in separation. Not believing wasn't about denying the objective fact of it. It was about having the confidence to overcome it. He was certain that, back then, both of them absolutely believed they would meet again. No one would have thought it was a final goodbye. But looking back, how many things had happened since then? She thought it was a temporary departure. He probably thought he'd see her the next day. But how many obstacles were waiting on that long road? How many accidents and hardships? For every pair that drifts apart on the river of time, the ending is different. And when you're older, seeing similar things happen, you might cynically say, forever is a ridiculous idea. But the precious thing wasn't forever. It was the youthful arrogance to believe goodbye is never really goodbye. Mrs. Sutton, was this the only notebook she left? The only one. Then did she give the others to her adoptive father? Her adoptive father was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. So that part of the story was true, Leo muttered, scratching his head. Did that mean everything except their childhood meeting was real? Leo decided to call Evelyn directly. The call was rejected. That meant she was deliberately ignoring him. The woman's logic was always so meticulous. She wouldn't just leave a loose end like this. There had to be a clue here. Could a genius like Leo be stumped by something so simple? Mrs. Sutton, give me a hint. A hint about what? About the diaries. Aren't they in your hand? Not this one. Leo was getting so worked up he was about to grab Mrs. Sutton's leg and beg her. You're asking me? I don't know either. Mrs. Sutton, are you some kind of NPC in a puzzle game? Do I need to ask a specific series of questions or fulfill some condition? Leo stood up, striking a dramatic pose. He projected an air of, bring it on, I'm a high IQ individual. I really don't know. Maybe you could ask Donnie. Yes, the diary mentioned Donnie. Leo asked excitedly, where's Donnie now? The last time she came to see me, she said she's a tattoo artist now. Opened a shop by the lake. Tattoo artist? For some reason, Leo thought of someone. But, Mrs. Sutton, isn't Donnie a guy? Donnie's a girl. She just used to dress like a tomboy. So now she goes by Vesper. I guess people in that line of work need a professional name. Once he had the answer, Leo spun around and left, a triumphant grin on his face. He chuckled to himself. What a genius. With Leo's intelligence, do you really think he'll understand your hint? I left so many obvious clues. How could he not? Evelyn said, leaning back in a chair of the tattoo parlor and staring up at the light. Why don't you just tell him directly? Because I'm trying my best to learn from Peyton's experience. The moment Peyton was stabbed, Leo's perception of her did a complete 180. A venomous, black-hearted woman was willing to die for you. So I have to avoid contact with him as much as possible. Let him build up an image of me in his mind. You have so many tricks up your sleeve. When I do that with Leo, I have even more. You really don't hold back, do you? Vesper huffed, standing off to the side. She looked at Evelyn with a hungry gaze. Wanting something you can't have is torture. And now it was even worse. Remember to give our little boy a warm welcome when he gets here, Evelyn said, grabbing her bag to leave. What more are you going to do for him? If none of this brings his memory back, then why bother? Wouldn't it be better for you two to just settle down and live a quiet life? Vesper, you don't understand love. You don't know that to love someone, you have to love all of them, whether the past memories are good or bad. This is on a spiritual level. Someone like you, who only understands carnal desire, could never comprehend it. Could you try not to insult me while you're explaining things? I'm just a bad person. Go on, sue me. Evelyn's slender figure disappeared from view, fading into the distance. All right, our little boy. Let's give you a warm welcome. Vesper slammed a bottle of water on the table, her face a mask of irritation. Did you hit menopause early? Leo glanced at her, confused. That was the wrong thing to say. Vesper's irritation flared into a rage. She grabbed him by the collar. What kind of tricks does Evelyn pull when you two do that? We've never done that. Seriously? She throws herself at you, and you can resist. Temporary restraint is for the sake of long-term possession. It's a spiritual matter. A person like you, who only knows carnal desire, wouldn't understand. Hearing those familiar words, Vesper's anger shot through the roof. I'm telling you, from this day forward, I'm going to find a spiritual love. Oh, Leo replied calmly, holding out his hand. Hand them over. What are you waiting for? Now it's your turn to beg me, isn't it? Before you get the diaries, you have to answer a question. Go ahead. Based on your experiences with Evelyn, explain to me what this so-called spiritual love of yours is. Do you really need an example for that? Leo stood, straightened his clothes, and walked over to Vesper. He crouched down and spoke softly. You feel lost when you're just indulging in physical desire, don't you? After the brief, artificial pleasure, you're left with an endless emptiness. How did you suddenly? Can you really empathize with that? Honestly, no, but I know a similar feeling. When you're addicted to alcohol, standing outside a bar waiting for a cab, you get hit with this profound sense of emptiness and unreality. Yes, Vesper whispered, looking down, then up again with a complex expression. So why is that? Because happiness follows the law of conservation. Short-term pleasure depletes you, and when it's over, you're left with infinite emptiness. So you have to find a happiness that can sustain you long-term. How do I find that? That's up to you, but I support you. If you run into any trouble, let me know. Thank you. Here are the diaries. Take them. Vesper lowered her head, sitting silently at the table. She watched Leo, who was a short distance away, and opened her mouth to speak several times, only to hesitate. Finally, she spoke. Are you really willing to help me? No. What? Didn't you just say? I was answering your question. Didn't you ask me what spiritual love was? Vesper felt her head spin. She glared at the scumbag in front of her, grinding her teeth. For a fleeting moment, she had actually thought Leo was her salvation. She couldn't believe she'd fallen for it. So, spiritual love is just offering support? Shallow, Leo said with a wave of his hand, taking a sip of water. It's a support that crosses boundaries. A hobby like yours is destined to be misunderstood by others. You have no right to force them to understand you, let alone support you. Can you understand me? No, but I respect you. Leo still had that same playful smirk, but his tone was serious. No one's heart can be judged as purely good or bad. Even the most righteous person probably has a secret corner in their soul. The bright parts can win you the affection of many, friends, family, teachers. But that secret corner is fated to be misunderstood. A teacher might like a student for being diligent in class, but they could never understand why that same student secretly skips practice to play in a band. That misunderstood part of you. That's what your lover is for. It's a required course for any worthy partner, to completely accept your flaws and support your decisions, even when you're standing against the whole world. Vesper leaned weakly against the wall, her voice trembling. How do I get that? With your heart. Leo picked up the diaries, ready to find a quiet place to read. But he glanced back at the stunned Vesper and couldn't resist adding one more thing. There's an old saying for it. It's called empathy. Vesper looked at Leo, who was leaning against the sofa, flipping through the diaries. A bold idea took root in her mind. I want Leo. I want Evelyn. If I can have both, that would be the ultimate delicacy. Leo, have you ever thought about getting creative? Get lost. Don't bother me, Leo said, knowing from one glance that she was up to no good. I don't believe you guys haven't thought about stuff like this, Vesper insisted. If I wanted to, I have my own candidates. I wouldn't pick you. And with that one sentence, her threesome dream was shattered. These diaries were on a different level. There were several volumes. Leo checked the dates. They went all the way up to September of this year, right before the car crash. To be honest, he was tempted to ask if there was a digital version. Then he could just search for the keyword Leo and only read the relevant entries. Otherwise, this would take forever. Evelyn said she's folded the corners on the important pages. Wow, how thoughtful. Oomph. Vesper turned and walked away. She'd never seen a relationship like this before. She thought dating was just holding hands, kissing, and sleeping together. The flames of jealousy burned hot within her. Leo opened the first page. The dates picked up where the last one left off. August 1 SD. I've arrived at my adoptive parents' home. They're very nice to me. They asked if I wanted to go to Disneyland. I shook my head. I asked if I could go out by myself. My adoptive father said of course, but they would have to come with me. I asked when they would have time. They fell silent. People with this much money are, of course, very busy. I didn't push it. I'd already expected this. It's okay. I'll go back one day. It's not like Leo is going anywhere. His home is in Riverbend Estates. August 7th. I've been too busy the past few days to write. My parents took me to a nearby school to enroll. I'm already 11. I should be in 5th grade, but I only finished 2nd grade before family troubles forced me to drop out. I've been reading and studying on my own, but it's not the same as a formal education. With my adoptive father pulling some strings, I managed to get into 4th grade. I wanted to visit Riverbend Estates before school started, but he didn't have time. I didn't insist. Leo noticed a long stretch of pages without folded corners. Why? When he got to the next marked page, it was 3 years later. April 5th. For 3 years, apart from school, all my time has been spent either in hospitals or resting at home. I fainted on my first day of school. At the same time, I've grown to hate going out and talking to people. During this period, I went to Riverbend Estates many times. I saw Leo many times. He hasn't grown much taller, but he's learned not to wipe his snot on his sleeve. He has a buzz cut and a cocky attitude. I'm not sure if he still remembers me. In my heart, he's my only connection to this world. But he has so much. So many friends, classmates, his mom. His life has flourished since I left. But I've only gotten worse. Feeling timid upon returning home. I finally understand what that phrase truly means. I tried to go see him several times, but I held back. I don't want him to see me like this. I want to be in a good place, to tell him I've been happy. To be like a normal friend, go boating on the river, have a meal, or invite him over to my house. But I can't do any of that right now. I lie awake all night. I don't know why I'm like this. I don't ask for much. I just want to make friends like a normal kid. But I can't. I went to the kitchen and picked up a fruit knife. I hesitated, then put it back down. I will get better, Leo. 2 years later, September 1 SD. Things are finally looking up. My health has improved. At least I don't faint from dizzy spells anymore. Leo started middle school this year. The same one as me. He's 2 grades below me. We haven't spoken a single word in 5 years. That day, I made a lot of preparations in my room. I secretly put my diary in my backpack, ready to go see him. I'd already found out which class he was in. I thought about it a lot on the way. What would we even say when we met? We couldn't still talk about Funyuns and Coke, could we? He was a big boy now, but I still packed a few bottles of Coke in my bag. I thought, if 5 years had made him forget me, I'd mention the children's home and hand him a Coke. Then he'd know who I was. Of course, that was just a backup plan. He definitely wouldn't have forgotten me. The weather was gloomy and rainy, a terrible day. The rain soaked me, and I felt an urge to just collapse. It was cold, so cold, but I kept walking. I had waited 5 years for this day. My health was finally a little better, and we were in the same school with more chances to talk. We would be like before, but we'd grown up. Would it still be like before? I pushed those strange thoughts away. I dodged the other students on my way and finally made it to his classroom. Outside the door, I ran into a familiar-looking girl. I knew her. She was also from Riverbend Estates. I'd seen her following Leo around from a distance several times. She was very pretty. I said, "Hello, I'm looking for Leo." She looked down shyly. An introverted girl, too. She went back inside and whispered something to Leo, and then he came out. It was the first time in 5 years I'd seen him up close. If I hadn't occasionally gone to see him during those 5 years, I would never have recognized him. Leo, woken from a nap, was clearly still grumpy. He walked over and glanced at me. He froze. In that moment, tears threatened to spill from my eyes. "I'm sorry, Leo. 5 years haven't changed my life at all. I tried so hard." Just as I was about to speak, Leo waved his hand in front of my face. "Hi, can I help you?" I couldn't. I just remember he used to call me sis. This time he said hi. P.S. Love, your forgotten friend. I ran away that day, humiliated. I saw the wary look in that girl's eyes, the one named Summerlin. I knew she must like him a lot, and he probably liked her too, right? I knew I was insecure. 5 years hadn't fixed that. I kept hoping I could find a better way to enter his life. Not necessarily perfect, but at least normal. If I had revealed who I was, Leo would have recognized me. He would have been excited, asking what I'd been up to for all these years. But when he learned about my situation, it would have turned into him pitying me again. I didn't want that. September 13th. I decided to let go of the past. I would try to enter Leo's life as a new friend. Our childhood friendship was only a month long. What was that compared to 5 years? Forgetting was normal. I kept telling myself that. Leo was popular at school. Lots of girls wanted to hang out with him. I decided to try that approach. I found Donnie and asked her to invite him out while I would hide and talk to him. I don't know what the occasion was, but Donnie, her friends, and I found Leo on the basketball court. We ended up inviting him to the arcade. I actually saw Summer Lynn in the distance, looking timid. But if we were going by who was first, it was clearly me. But Leo didn't go that day. He said it was a girl's birthday, and he had to go back to celebrate with her. His mom had even cooked a special meal. In that moment, I realized Summer Lynn wasn't just a regular friend. She was someone he saw every day. The time he'd spent with her was far longer than the time he'd spent with me. I hated Summer Lynn. October 21 SD. I decided to drop out of school. I just lay at home every day in a daze, dreaming of my mom and dad. It's normal that Leo doesn't remember me. Who could clearly remember a childhood playmate they only knew for a month? But I remembered him. When I completely gave up the idea of contacting him, I also lost my only connection to the world. I was no longer afraid of death. My adoptive father was very good to me. He tried to help in many ways, even finding a famous doctor to make a house call. The old doctor, whose beard nearly touched the floor, told me, "Some wounds can't be healed by medicine." I didn't care about my health. My adoptive father tried other methods. He told me, if you're sad, you should go to California. It's always sunny there. Lying in my sickbed, I shook my head. I didn't want to go to a sunny place. I'd rather curl up and die in a cave covered in moss. I couldn't be like a normal person, with dreams, friends, and hopes for the future. But my adoptive father took me to church. I liked it there. In the afternoon, the church was filled only with the refracted light of the setting sun and silence. The faint light only illuminated the upper half of a person's body. It made me keenly aware that I possessed an incomplete soul. The missing half had long ago been burned to ashes in a fire that could never be undone. All I had to do now was find the right time to burn the other half. I wanted to burn down this church. But in moments like these, something always happens to make you think that maybe God really does exist. Why is he here? I pointed at a figure with a broom in the distance and asked the priest. He cleans the church. $20 a day. He's just a kid. Technically, we're not supposed to hire child labor, but this boy. The priest hesitated, embarrassed. Well, I tried to turn him down for that reason. He insisted I was his uncle and that this was just helping out at the family business to earn some allowance. Nothing that happened with Leo was ever a surprise. I forgot my plan to burn everything down and just rested my head on the table, watching him sweep with all his might. I knew about his family, a deceased father and a single mother raising him. But he was facing life head-on, wasn't he? I spoke. Leo, don't you have homework on the weekends? Are you talking to me? Leo looked up, confused for a moment. I'm the girl who came to your classroom to find you. Lots of girls come to my classroom to find me. Leo was probably just stating a fact, but a fire ignited inside me. I wanted to burn them all, and I would start with Summerlin. Leo didn't pay me much attention. After finishing his cleaning, he opened his backpack and started doing his homework right there in the church, his brow furrowed in concentration, just like when he was learning to write as a little kid. Do you need help? That would be great. Leo had no concept of being shy. He immediately moved closer, looking at me with gratitude. I liked that look. It made me feel like I existed in his life because I could be useful, not because of some shared memory from long ago. What does innate mean? Innate is just stuff you're born with. Be more specific. I watched Leo scratch his head, then pointed to his worksheet. It refers to characteristics or traits that are inherent and determined by genetic factors. I then asked him, so what about acquired? Acquired? My aunt's getting married next Tuesday. Leo started grinning to himself, his laughter echoing in the quiet church. He was probably proud of his brilliant joke. I tapped him on the head. He really loved to laugh. Study. Oh, Leo lowered his head, still snickering to himself. I tried my best to explain the problems to him, but 5 minutes later, I heard heavy breathing. He had fallen asleep in his chair. I was about to wake him, but then I saw the beads of sweat on his forehead. He must be tired. After all, I'd watched this little brat grow up. I could never admit he was handsome, not when I could still picture him wiping his nose on his sleeve. I finished the rest of his homework for him and tidied up his messy backpack. From a side pocket, I saw a mountain of letters. I don't pry into other people's privacy, but I saw a heart drawn on one of them. Now I had to look. They were all the same. Love letters. I confiscated them. I was his sister, after all. Then I found a letter he had written himself. The date on it was from 2 years ago. The letter read, Sis, do your adoptive parents feed you? Do you have to sleep on straw? Is your house drafty? Just kidding. Donnie told me your new family is super rich, with a car as big as a house. It's good that they're rich. You can eat a whole fried chicken every day. I haven't gone back to the children's home, because I can read now. You didn't want me to read the name on the sign, so I can't go now, because my reading level is so high I can read it with just a glance. Pretty cool, huh? I don't know where you live. Mrs. Sutton is too busy to talk to a little kid. Donnie got adopted too, and he doesn't know your address either. But he said in a few years he'll get a phone, and he can contact you. Then I'll send you this letter. I kind of miss you, but it's okay. It's your fault for not coming back to see me even once, even though we only knew each other for a month. I hold grudges. If you don't remember me, then I'll forget you too. Just kidding. I'm a forgiving person. I'll never forget you. By the end, I couldn't see the words anymore. Tears had soaked the paper. I felt an indescribable strength surge through my weak body. I leaned gently against Leo's shoulder. The church was empty. Only the sunlight from a narrow window split the world in two. Half of it illuminated his face, the other half mine. Our souls were one. That's right. Leo, I never left. I was filled with strength again. I wanted to solve my own problems. My psychosomatic issues were severe, so I started devouring psychology books. Self-rescue. My adoptive father noticed. He was always concerned about me. He asked if I was interested in psychology. I nodded. He said that was a good thing, that he would find a way to send me abroad to study. I was hesitant, but because of my health, I had dropped out of school too many times. The pressure of the school system here was too much for me to handle. I had no choice but to leave. Over the next few years, I transferred to schools in other cities to prepare for studying abroad. It was the only path my adoptive father's connections could open for me. But that didn't mean I couldn't see Leo. My adoptive father gave me a generous allowance, so I had more financial freedom. I used all of it to buy plane tickets back to Riverbend. Every single weekend, I came back, just to catch a glimpse of Leo. Every weekend, without fail. I had nothing else to do. Although Summer Lynn's existence infuriated me, and I had thoughts of burning her to ashes, I could tolerate it. Because only after I became a normal person would I have the right to truly fight her. It's not that I hadn't thought about following Leo around like she did, but I was a few years older, and the experiences I'd been through had taught me about the cold realities of life. Summer Lynn's path seemed easy now, but she was destined for great suffering in the future. When her time of suffering came, a perfect version of me would make a grand entrance. Of course, this way of thinking probably had its own problems. Psychology books say that insecure people always make excuses for their lack of courage, always wanting to appear only when they're perfect, when in reality, they're just hiding their current cowardice. I felt that sentence stab me right in the heart. Studying psychology wasn't always great. I knew the book was calling me out, but I couldn't argue back. December 21, ST. Just before I was about to go abroad, my adoptive mother was killed by my adoptive father. I can't write down how I feel because I can't even hold this pen steady. I didn't stay in that house of horrors. I'm in a hotel. What's even harder to accept is that the only thing I feel is a primal fear of death, not sadness. They raised me for so many years. Why, when something so terrible happened, did I not even have the urge to cry? All I felt was numbness. It was as if the scene had played out in my mind many times before. Why? Was it because I overheard my aunt and uncle saying that child was born to curse her blood relatives? I bring misfortune. Even my adoptive parents couldn't escape my curse. I was numb. Everyone who gets close to me leaves. I don't know what to do or where to go. Sprawled on a hotel bed, I had no idea what to do. I felt I couldn't stay here. So I wandered the streets, the biting wind making me tremble. I was a jinx who brought disaster. I was a heartless monster who couldn't even cry when my adoptive parents met their end. I was a born invalid, and after cursing everyone else to death, I would collapse on the ground and die quietly. I didn't go to Riverbend Estates. I got on the flight that had already been booked. I wasn't a little girl who ran, crying to Leo whenever something went wrong anymore. I had learned a lot. You can't always be in a negative state. It exhausts the people around you. For example, you have to accept that at different stages of life, you need to find different ways to connect with the world to prove your own existence. I would find a new way to exist. April 3 RD. Life abroad wasn't as boring as I expected, because I would find a different way to live. But what was completely different from what I imagined was that I simply couldn't learn how to interact with people normally. I habitually assumed the worst of others. In my classmates' eyes, I was aloof and extreme, so I naturally reverted to the method I was most accustomed to, creating pain. I enjoyed the feeling, especially when I lay in bed thinking about how, at that very moment, a large group of people hated my guts. It made me laugh out loud. Death isn't the end. Being forgotten is. But not being forgotten doesn't have to mean being liked. Hate can also make people remember. As time went on, many past memories began to fade. But I was clearly a person who clung to memories. Memories of my parents' deaths, my aunt's disgust, my time at the orphanage, my adoptive parents' accident. I clung to the pain of the past, which kept me mired in it, unable to escape. At the same time, I also clung to that one precious piece of happiness. Getting better would cure my insecurity, but getting worse would, too. On a Christmas Eve, close to graduation, holding a small bell in my hand, I walked alone on the street, gazing eastward. I had a sudden realization. If I kept chasing perfection, I might never get another chance to see Leo in my entire life. People who chase perfection can never attain it. Because the template of a normal person I had in my mind was Leo. I was trying to become a normal person, but what did that even mean? Only now did I realize it. I wanted to become a positive, sunny person like Leo. But that was simply impossible. The biggest lesson psychology taught me was that a person's personality is largely shaped by their experiences. So I left. I had to go back to Riverbend. I returned to Riverbend. I felt like I had found myself. I watched him from afar. In that moment, I had no idea how to walk up to him and speak. How long is 12 years? 12 years can take you from the first day of elementary school to high school graduation. 12 years can turn a sapling into a fruit-bearing tree. 12 years can be a cat's entire lifetime. 12 years is one full cycle of the zodiac. I knew if I had spoken 10 years ago, we would have been old childhood friends reuniting. If I had spoken 5 years ago, we would have been in the throes of our most impulsive years. But now it was too late. The insecure always receive love too late. How was I supposed to, after 15 years, ask for love from a playmate I had only known for 1 month as a child? I didn't know what to do. So I quietly gathered information. Leo and Summer Lynn were a couple now. They were the sweethearts everyone talked about. I was just a footnote in his life. Hearing that Leo was happy actually made me happy, too. After high school, he worked at a little electronics store. I watched him from a distance. I watched him and Summer Lynn flirting at the counter. It was a beautiful picture. I hate all beautiful things because all the beauty in the world has nothing to do with me. But I hope Leo always has a smile on his face. He's meant to be that boy who wipes his nose on his sleeve, who scratches his head in frustration while studying, who just giggles foolishly when you scold him. April 7th. I've been observing Leo for days. I've confirmed that he's doing well. I can rest easy now. I have other things to do, like fulfilling my adoptive father's last wish. I've learned a lot. I know the reason I didn't feel sad about my adoptive parents' accident is because my threshold for misfortune is too high. A high threshold leads to numbness. So I constantly seek out pain, because numbness makes you lose the will to live. Better to be in pain than to be numb. My adoptive father had another notebook for me. I went to the church and found his friends. Filled with gratitude for him, I prayed sincerely to God. Because along this journey, I've met so many people and have not received even a single drop of affection. How can a person be so unlucky? People just can be. Only with Leo and my adoptive father did I find a sliver of evidence that the world could be beautiful. So I knelt on the floor and prayed sincerely that he would be okay. But the contents of the notebook were unbearable. My adoptive father wrote that the reason he adopted an older, rebellious girl from an orphanage was precisely because I was a jinx. He would punish me in God's name. I can't describe my feelings. All I know is that from that moment on, I was completely disconnected from the world. I knew what this punishment was. I looked at the smiling faces of my adoptive father's friends. There was no elaborate ritual or judgment. They just smiled at me. For me, killing me would not be a punishment. Destroying all hope was. It's okay. As long as I can see Leo, my world will be filled with hope. I didn't know Leo had already quit his job at the store. When a new clerk told me, I was shocked. As I wandered the streets in a daze, not knowing where to find him, I saw him. His face was bruised and swollen as he came out of a back alley. His nose was still bleeding. He wiped the blood from his face with his sleeve, just like he used to wipe his snot as a child. Maybe this is the price of growing up. You get taller, your hair gets longer, and the snot turns to blood. I watched him with my own eyes. He walked to a large tree with a rope in his hand and hung himself. He wanted to commit suicide. To me, this was an utterly terrifying event. Everyone needs something to live for. For example, when you're discouraged, you might see your favorite athlete, who suffered a major injury, make a triumphant comeback. That immense spiritual inspiration becomes a part of what sustains you. If even Leo couldn't go on, I definitely couldn't either. But I wouldn't try to stop him. Because of my powerful empathy, I could feel his despair. It's true that for people at the bottom of society, most suffering can be summarized as a lack of money. But that's just a summary. Pain is an emotional outcome. Not having money doesn't directly cause pain. It needs a medium. You suffer when you can't afford to eat, to get medical care, to pursue your dreams. Leo's pain came from his personality. People who face life with optimism, confident that they can handle anything, are prone to this kind of suffering. Because life will always throw things at you that you can't handle. Think of a brilliant Civil War general, a master of cavalry and cannons. Then imagine he finds himself facing an enemy with tanks and machine guns. The rules have changed. He can't win. What does that do to a man who has never known anything but victory? He is responsible for the hopes of his soldiers, his people. He has a duty to the memory of his fallen comrades. And now he has to face an enemy who seems to be playing a different game entirely, a god from the machine. Wouldn't he be overcome by a crushing sense of powerlessness? Leo wasn't a general, but he was the spiritual anchor of his own small world. He supported the existence of so many others. Why was he the king of the kids? Because they had fun with him, he was fair, and he could solve their childish disputes. Why could he support a broken family? Because he started working at a young age, shouldering responsibility. Why was Summer Lynn willing to follow him around? Because he supported her through a fragile childhood. So, when faced with a failure he couldn't solve, the fallout was far more devastating for him than for those who were used to retreating. You place all your hopes on your idol, But for the idol, that hope is a slow-acting poison. Because hope itself is a constraint on personality. You see your idol as perfect, someone who must always shine. The moment they show the slightest weakness, you naturally express disappointment. And that disappointment slowly kills their spirit. This is the price his personality had to pay. So no, I wouldn't stop him. Because in my eyes, responsibility is as light as a feather. Living isn't necessarily a good thing. But Leo was saved. I knew then that death would not be his end. Not yet. People like him have one advantage. Show them a sliver of hope, and they'll dig their way through a mountain. That vibrant life force is what I adored. If Leo wanted to die, I wouldn't stop him. If Leo wanted to live, I would help him live better. I had once again found my reason for existing. I had also found a way into his life. Hooking Leo wasn't hard. I sent him a text offering a free psychological consultation. Then I put up a web ad with free as the bait. He would definitely choose the free option. When Leo discovered that the free online consultation and the text were from the same person, this coincidence I deliberately created became a powerful tool to quickly close the distance between us. Seducing a man, for me, was the easiest thing in the world. July 12th. The treatment plan has been going for a few days. Throughout the entire plan, I've been following one principle: usurp Summer Lynn's position. But I just couldn't do it. So I attempted suicide several times, but Leo saved me each time. Lying in bed, I dimly realized that my life was destined to be entangled with this man in a complex web. And so, I became worse. The communication between Leo and Summer Lynn would never have deteriorated to its current state. I am fully responsible. Leo is sharp when it comes to matters of the heart. But don't underestimate a psychologist. I never once mentioned that they should break up. I only planted seeds from the sidelines. Because the advantage of me replacing her is that I have no dreams, no life of my own. Just like this, leaning against his legs by the window is the lifestyle I've always dreamed of. Leo can do whatever he wants. I won't tie him down or pressure him. I just need him to remember to come back and see me every day. But I made no progress. He still insisted on supporting Summer Lynn. I knew I had to make a change. July 26th. As a child, I couldn't control my own destiny, which meant I couldn't stay by Leo's side. So I tried to change myself, but I failed. As an adult, I can control my own destiny. But because of Summer Lynn, I still can't be by his side. This time, I will change myself again. I started trying to go out and build a new life, to have more new things to talk to him about. This time, I didn't fail. The relationship between Leo and Summer Lynn reached a breaking point. They were on a break. I thought my chance had come. But then Leo mentioned a new name. A girl named Skylar Reed. I went to observe their life. It was something I could never do. I had failed again. This time, I decided to change myself in a different direction. If I can't learn to be good, I'll learn to be bad. I started making Leo hate me, to resent me forever and ever. So I secretly sent information about Skylar Reed to his benefactor. Leo's life was thrown into chaos. He rarely came to see me anymore. September 9th. Just when I thought everything was over, he was saying goodbye to everyone. Breaking up with his ex-girlfriend, saying farewell to Skylar Reed. I believed it was a sign he was going to attempt suicide again. In the dim room, we sat opposite each other. I thought he wanted to die. He said he would die with no regrets. Because before he died, he had finally confessed the feelings he had held in his heart for so long. I didn't know what to feel. In the dim light, I looked at this boy I had known for 14 years. From his perspective, we had only spent a month together as children. He had countless childhood playmates. From my perspective, he was my only hope for those 14 years. I looked at his face calmly. In that moment, I decided to let everything go. I would no longer selfishly cling to my hopes, but wish him a better future. But the wonderful thing about the world is you can never guess what will happen next. This pale-faced boy reached out and stroked my head. He said, "It's been a long time." Sis, my tears burst forth like a river breaking its dam. My feelings could never be truly understood by anyone else. Was a single month in childhood really worth remembering to this day? Yes. Because some people spend their whole lives healing from their childhood. And some people use their childhood to endure a lifetime of pain. All my thoughts are insecure, dark, and pessimistic. Only when I'm with Leo can I feel the true existence of words like equality and respect. He is not affected by me. He is always standing in the distance, waving at me. I asked him when he knew. He said he knew back in middle school. He was stunned when he first saw me. But later he found Donnie and learned that Evelyn Shaw was the big sister from the children's home. But he had his concerns. Because I didn't understand why you didn't just introduce yourself. Leo is still confused about that to this day. But he's a very perceptive person, especially when it comes to girls' feelings. He figured I must have my reasons, or maybe that the month we spent together as kids had been ground to dust by the long years. If we reconnected, great. If not, it wasn't a big deal. So Leo did nothing. He just saw me at the church often when he was cleaning, so he brought the unsent letter with him. But he was too tired that day, and when he woke up, I was already gone. Whether we reconnected or not didn't really matter, but I still had to give you this unsent letter. Otherwise, I would have written it for nothing. Leo held out the letter. I didn't take it. I had already read it. I asked him, so all this time, all these therapy sessions, you were just playing a game with me? He shook his head. No, talking with you was genuinely nice. You helped me solve a lot of my problems. I asked him, will you come back again? He shook his head again. To be honest, I wasn't your caregiver for the money. I'm actually a genius escort. Sis, I don't really know you. My childhood memories are pretty fuzzy. Since you didn't want to reconnect, I didn't bring it up. I just felt like you weren't doing well, and if chatting with you could solve some of your problems, it would also save me the cost of therapy. I said, thank you for saving me. But Leo laughed, a wide grin spreading across his face. In this world, no one saves anyone else. When we were young, I just thought of you as a childhood playmate. Now you're my psychologist. By any reasonable standard, we're just good friends. Leo put down the diary. He didn't speak. Instead, he called Evelyn. She answered, hello. Finished reading. Finished. Any thoughts? You're insane. Get back to Riverbend with me right now. No, I'm going to change. How many times have you tried to change in your life? I haven't seen a single one stick. Leo, this time I'll succeed. Where are you? In my apartment. Wait for me. Leo stood up to leave, but Vesper was right behind him. What are you following me for? Are you two about to get back together and do things? What I do is none of your business. You really can't let me join in. Get lost. But no matter what Leo said, Vesper shamelessly insisted on tagging along, even offering to be his free driver and guide. Evelyn wasn't at her apartment. She was at the church. It was the middle of the night, and the church was long closed, but she had brazenly called the priest and demanded he come open the doors. Don't ask why. Money makes the world go round. No matter how principled the priest was, he still had to eat. She stood before the altar, looking up at the painting of the Last Judgment. Around her, freshly lit candles flickered. People were bustling in and out of the choir loft, in such a hurry that someone even dropped a pipe organ on the floor. They had all been summoned by a single phone call from the priest. The conversation probably went something like, big gig. You in? It pays. The choir's repertoire for the evening consisted mainly of hymns. Right now, they were singing Amazing Grace, a story of redemption. This was the kind of place that suited Evelyn. She had looked out a place in the messy, chaotic tattoo parlor. But here, in the center of the church, as the solemn music echoed through the vast space, she looked like an angel walking among mortals. Excuse me, the priest said. May I ask what event is being held tonight? A judgment. Her answer left the priest dumbfounded again. These days, the biggest event a church held was a wedding. A judgment? He'd never officiated one of those. Besides, who was coming here to be judged? Did she expect God to send down a bolt of lightning to strike down a sinner? You don't have to do anything. Then I'll just go rest in the side chapel. You need to stand here. Otherwise, there's no atmosphere. You're insulting me. You'll be compensated handsomely. Hearing that, the priest stomped over to the stone altar and stood on top of it, becoming a motionless statue. Let's get on with it, Evelyn called to him. Recall your sins. Oh, Evelyn closed her eyes and began to review her life. She had many diaries. Leo had only seen the pages with folded corners. The rest were journeys she had walked alone. She was a bad kid. She was a person who brought misfortune. Besides her parents, grandmother, and adoptive parents, many passers-by in her life had been affected by her. Sometimes, she had affected them on purpose. The human psyche can develop in twisted ways. When misfortune becomes the norm, behavior becomes unconventional. Like the fire she started at the orphanage. Misfortune was bound to happen to you after meeting me. So what's wrong with me starting the fire a little earlier? Even after growing up, she maintained this behavior. She toyed with her suitors inhumanly. The girls connected to Leo were all manipulated by her. Ethan Miller, under her influence, learned to fight back and ended up in prison. Leo's roommate, Dave, became a simp in her dark scheme, eavesdropping at the door. Even the vendors at the underground market, whom she had known for only a short time, were tormented by her. Every action has a purpose. What was Evelyn's? Lord, forgive me for being unable to prove my own existence, for finding pleasure in creating pain, she prayed silently. The solemn chanting filled her ears. Lord, forgive me again for my numerous confessions, for I have never truly changed. She knew she always talked about changing, but she never had. Her heart was forever stuck in that childhood afternoon when she was rewarded with a pat on the head. All her actions were not for the sake of becoming better, but in the hopes of receiving the reward of love. But was there really love between her and Leo in their childhood? Did a snot-nosed kid even know what love was back then? Leo had no idea. He just saw her as a playmate. She was the one who was chasing something she could never have. For her, misfortune was simpler than eating or drinking, so she only chased the things she couldn't get. On the matter of deceiving Leo, she hadn't lied. The story she had originally told him was a mix of truth and lies. The core of that story was to create the tragic persona of a psychologist who falls in love with her patient but can't have him. That was the lie, because she had been in a state of unrequited love since she was 10. Because of her tragic fate, because of Summer Lynn, because of Skylar Reed, or because of his amnesia. Long ago, she had blamed it all on these external factors. If she hadn't been a child without parents, if she had been just a normal kid, would there have been a Summer Lynn? Would any of the subsequent events have happened? But only today did she realize that none of those factors were the point. The point was that she had always been chasing something that didn't exist. She had suffered too much misfortune from life too early. So she longed for someone to save her. She wanted to be a normal person. What did that even mean? A normal person's life should be at least half luck, half misfortune. But you can't expect one person to fill the void of misfortune in your life. Don't other people have their own troubles? Why should someone else pay the debt that life owes you? So the thing she was desperately seeking simply didn't exist. Like the God before her. God is given meaning precisely because he doesn't exist. If God existed, all his spiritual attributes would be erased because people expect God to do unreasonable things. If your existence is reasonable, why would people worship you? It was just like the thing Evelyn had been chasing her entire life. Evelyn slowly took a step forward, her frail body gliding through the sacred ocean. When viewed through the flickering candlelight, the scene became magical. Her faint silhouette seemed to be walking barefoot in this space, like a pilgrim on a long journey, her feet rooted in the gravelly soil of her barren life, searching for a temple that did not exist in this world. She knelt, looking up piously at God. There were many believers like her in this world, many people similar to her. Not exactly good kids, not exactly bad kids, but just unable to receive love. Was every child like this, like her, spending their whole life chasing a non-existent love? She wanted to ask God one ultimate question. If God created this world, then what was the purpose of creating children like her? She was a psychologist. As a doctor, she would inevitably encounter death. A person's last wishes are precious because time is short. Almost no one on their deathbed says, "Bring me my trophy, I want to see it," or "Bring me my diploma." Before dying, people want to see their family, friends, lovers, and pets. Or take one last look at the old car that was with them from their humble beginnings to their great success. In the face of death, emotion is far more important than achievement. Evelyn raised her hands above her head. She said, "If I am not a good child, nor a bad child, then did God create us to love?" When Leo arrived at the church, he looked around, bewildered. "You're sure Evelyn's here?" The priest sent me a picture. "He wants me to get this crazy woman out of here." "Crazy woman? What do you mean?" "She said she wants to judge herself, tie herself to a cross, and set herself on fire." "Seriously? What is wrong with her?" Leo quickly pushed open the church doors. It was pitch black inside, but with every step he took, a spotlight turned on, and the one behind him shut off. It had the eerie vibe of a haunted house escape room. Level, the eerie chapel. But the truly weird part was up ahead. He saw a person tied to a cross. "Are you kidding me? You're playing with bondage in a church." Leo stared dumbly at the familiar figure on the cross. "This is a judgment," Evelyn said, her head lowered, a blush on her cheeks as she looked at him. "Who's the prosecutor?" "Wait, no, who's judging you?" Leo scratched his head and looked around. He didn't see anyone else. "Stop looking. It's you. You and your weird games. Can't you do this at home? This is a real judgment. I'm not religious. How am I supposed to represent God? Because besides you, no one is qualified to judge me." Leo shot her an exasperated look and thought about getting her down. But Evelyn wouldn't agree, and her reason was even more ridiculous. As we all know, our dear little Leo has a thing for limited edition skins. Don't you like the religious judgment theme? That's not it. The comment made Leo laugh in frustration. Sometimes he really couldn't be blamed for his tastes. He was starting to think that succubi might actually exist in real life. Someone like Evelyn could hit all your buttons with just a few words. In this solemn, sacred environment, with the soft light on her face, dressed in a white gown and barefoot, tied to a cross, she still had to tease him. Seeing Leo just stand there, Evelyn's expression changed to one of sudden understanding. I get it. This kind of forced scenario isn't challenging if I just submit meekly. I need to change my approach. What? Imagine me now as a female demon lord who has committed heinous crimes in the mortal world. Even though you've captured me and are about to burn me to ashes in an eternal flame, I refuse to bow my head and repent. And then your spear emerges like a dragon, destroying me and my psychological defenses at the same time. What? Who ever heard of defeating a final boss like that? I've seen it in power fantasy web novels. The final chapter, the hero kills the villainous boss through forced dual cultivation. Fine, you can just hang there then. Let's see how your little body likes it. I will not submit to you. Physical pain cannot torture my soul, unless your spear emerges like a dragon. You never quit, do you? Leo stood in front of her and lifted her chin with his hand. You still haven't told me everything. Spit it out. Didn't I show you the diaries? Bullshit. There's still more. More of what? Remind me. Evelyn, you're doing this on purpose. Leo gritted his teeth, glaring at her. But his impotent rage only earned him a light laugh from her. Oh my, if my little brother doesn't know something, he just has to ask his big sister. It's the part about our identities. What identities are those? Evelyn watched him with a playful expression. Ugh, you know that. Leo was being evasive, too embarrassed to say it. The more he acted this way, the more amused she became, like an older sister teasing her innocent little brother. What identity could it be? It's so hard to guess. Why don't you say it out loud for me? It's the little pet thing. Ooh, Evelyn feigned surprise, her voice slow and drawn out. And who is the little pet? Are you going to keep this up? As soon as you tell me what my identity is and what your identity is, I'll tell you everything exactly as it happened. Then I don't want to know. Leo turned his head away. He didn't believe it. Was he going to die if he didn't hear it? Oh, don't be mad. Lean in, and I'll whisper it to you. Just say it here. Aren't you embarrassed? Do you want me to shout it? Fine, fine. Leo leaned his ear toward her, tilting his head as he waited. Then he felt a moist sensation on his ear, like being licked by a kitten. Just as he was about to pull back, Evelyn spoke. Leo, I'll go back to Riverbend with you. Obviously, Leo said, this was how the story was supposed to go. In fact, he felt it should have gone this way a long time ago. A woman who had loved unrequitedly for over a decade finally finds redemption. It had a bit of a fairy tale feel to it, but the only negative thing about fairy tales is people's jealousy that they don't happen to them. No one actually thinks fairy tales are bad. Do you accept me? We need to discuss that. Acceptance wasn't a simple thing. It was easy for him to nod, but what about the rest of their lives? Leo had to consider what Evelyn would do in the future. I can't just keep you home doing nothing, can I? Is our family short on money? If I don't find something for you to do, you'll find something for me to do. On this point, Leo was crystal clear. When people get bored, they stir up trouble. A normal person's trouble is harmless. But Evelyn's trouble could have massive repercussions. Then just don't let me be idle. When I wake up, your spear can emerge like a dragon. I'm weak anyway. A few of your special moves, and I'll pass out. We could just repeat that cycle. Do we have to live such a debauched life? To be honest, if Evelyn could be like Peyton, with a small career or a little dream, Leo would support her 100% and accept her completely. But, so Leo, you still can't accept me in the role of a pet. You want the truth? Leo tapped her on the head and whispered, if it's for a day or two, as a bit of fun, I'd be all for it. But if that's our life for the next few decades, then no. What if it's just for one day? We could try it. First, tell me the story. We could try it while I tell you, okay? Evelyn tilted her head, a playful smile on her face. No one knew what she was planning. Do you know why I ran away from my aunt's house? Because she thought you were bad luck? That wasn't enough to make me try so hard to escape. Then why? Because my aunt would hit me when I made a mistake. Evelyn had been untied from the cross, and red marks lined her pale skin. At first, it was just a slap or two. Then she realized there were no consequences for hitting me. There was no mother who would see the bruises on my body and confront her. I kept fighting back, but my aunt kept telling me it was because she loved me. Because if she didn't look after me, no one else in the world would. Evelyn was clearly answering his question, answering Leo's confusion about the masochism. How did she become this way? But Leo still looked puzzled. I was just a childhood playmate. How did I become your master? Leo, can you understand the mind of a child who was already dark to begin with, and then was controlled through violence? I can. They'd go to extremes. No, humans are highly adaptable creatures who prefer to stay in their comfort zones. Compared to the unknown, people are more inclined to immerse themselves in familiar pain. So that explains why you always want me to hit you. Because for people who lack attention and care, They have to find a real sensation to fantasize about being loved. And pain is the easiest interactive sensation to obtain. I get it. It's a way to feel noticed. Like how some girls repeatedly ask their boyfriends if they love them. Because a vague feeling is hard to grasp, they need proof of its existence. Leo, you're so smart. So let's quickly have your spear emerge like a dragon. You still haven't answered my question. I'm not a person who brings pain at all. Why did you single me out? Leo could guess with his toes that there was more to this story. There's no time. When the clock strikes midnight, you won't be able to use your spear even if you want to. Why? Because when the bell tolls, it will be my time of judgment. Evelyn's slender body was sitting on Leo's lap as she whispered, Leo, did you know? You were supposed to witness a grand judgment scene when you walked into the church. Leo glanced at the 2 gasoline cans by his feet. Cosplaying Joan of Arc? Exactly. I know you think I'm just messing around. But Leo, this is the fate I've chosen. You've always respected other people's fates, right? Evelyn wrapped her arms around his neck, her feet hooking his waist. A person like me is meant to be a beautiful, ephemeral flower. I could never live a positive life for a long time. Listen to this story. A person born into misfortune, who created countless pains and troubles in her life, finally judges herself in an eternal flame. That's a good story. Asking me to try to live a positive life is just torture. Evelyn's pupils were so clear, clearer than they had ever been in her life. Leo, you can understand me, right? You don't have to be so fixated on helping me regain my memory. Finding the complete memory was never about revenge, just about hoping there would be no more misunderstandings. Leo stood up. He said, I can't just watch you die. It goes against basic human decency. It doesn't matter if it's you or a stranger trying to kill themselves in front of me. If it's within my power, I'll save them. A wicked smile played on Evelyn's face. She looked truly evil now. In a solemn church, barefoot and straddling a man, like a beautiful evil serpent from a mural, seducing a mortal to eat the forbidden fruit. Leo, don't you think I'm a lot of trouble now? I've caused you much more trouble in the past than I am now. You can take your revenge on me right here, then get up and leave without looking back. That would be the perfect happy ending. I could leave right now, Leo said suddenly, completely contradicting the basic morality he had just espoused. You're not going to save me? You can't stop someone who wants to die. When Leo stood, moved her off him, and turned to leave, Evelyn leaned against the table, a tragic smile on her face, tears streaming down her nose to her lips. Leo, don't you want to know why you're the master? You should hit me, Leo. Tell me you love me, that you're saving me for my own good, that no one else will take care of me, but you. You can ask me to do anything now. I won't resist. I'm begging you to control me, with violence or anything, any way you want. Leo just kept walking without a word. His figure quickly disappeared through the church doors, leaving Evelyn alone, sitting on the floor in front of the altar. She didn't want to die. She was just doing him a favor by restoring his memory in the process. Because her life should have had a great fire in it a long time ago. Remember her second stage treatment plan? In her eyes, love is a fleeting moment of connection, like a flower blooming in the wilderness. It disappears after its brilliant display. How can love be frozen in its most beautiful state? She tried using hate, but Leo didn't take the bait. So she's preparing a new method. Just like a key frame from a classic movie becomes immortal, she only wants that one key frame, enough to freeze love and hate, to preserve meaning in an instant. For her, living a positive life was just torture. Practice makes perfect, and she had tried to change countless times. A look of regret crossed her face. After becoming a psychologist, Leo was the one patient she never wanted to see, like a surgeon finally stepping up to the operating table, only to find that the patient is your own mother. She wanted Leo to find his lost smile. She also knew he had done more than enough for her. She was the one who didn't want it, because the thing she was chasing was something that didn't exist in this world. It wasn't just that Leo couldn't give it to her. Even God couldn't. She quietly stared at the church entrance. Barefoot, she walked toward the cross above the altar. She would end her unfortunate life here, at this moment. A death row inmate can have a song played before their execution. Most don't care to choose one, so they end up listening to the default playback of the Barney and Friends theme song. But she was in the mood. She had chosen her own final song. Not far from the church was the lake. This was the final location she had chosen long ago. The river's flow is like my tears. I'd rather for you become a burning fire. Chapter 320. Outside the door, Vesper kept asking Leo why he was leaving. Because it's a necessary part of Evelyn's treatment, Leo explained patiently. But I think she really wants to die, Vesper said, peeking through the crack in the door. I specialize in treating people like her. Leo waved his hand and went back inside without another word. He simply helped Evelyn solve the global problem of a person being unable to tie themselves to a cross. Any last words? Go ahead. You should stand back. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. Evelyn had resumed her seductive persona, looking less like she was about to die and more like she was teasing a virgin at a bar. I'll give you one last chance. What was the event that made me the master? Is that really so important? Evelyn was genuinely confused why Leo was so obsessed with this. It's very important. Then I won't tell you. I want you to remember me forever, to grind your teeth in hatred whenever you think of me. Then I'll say it. It's not in my diary. There's no way you could know, Evelyn said with a charming smile. Bus, subway, high-speed train, airplane. Leo ignored her, rattling off a list of vehicles like he was ordering from a menu. But Evelyn's expression was one of utter shock. You got your memory back. It was just a matter of time. Leo smiled, leaning in close to her. Now, tell me everything, start to finish. Evelyn was at a loss for words. Can't say it, can you? Then I'll talk. Every time I had to travel, like when I was going to see Summer Lynn or run an errand for Silas, I'd buy a slow train ticket. But the next day, I'd get a text saying I'd successfully purchased a high-speed rail or plane ticket. The weird thing was I never paid for it, never even saw the ticket. But I'd always see you on board. You'd pretend it was a chance encounter, travel with me, and pay for everything along the way. What does that prove? Evelyn asked, confused. There's more, Leo continued. When I was a student, I'd often find extra cash in my backpack. It would just appear out of nowhere. You put it there. Well, I got into a fight at school and hurt someone. Their parents never asked me for compensation. You paid for that too, right? And the night I tried to kill myself, after that guy screwed me over, I had lost all my money, and the people who worked for me were waiting to get paid. I thought he'd had a change of heart and paid them for me. But it was you who paid them, wasn't it? Evelyn still looked bewildered. She tried to regain control with a teasing tone, but Leo's rapid-fire questions left her scrambling. Yes, but is any of that important? It is, because you've never understood one simple truth. You can't just fixate on the trouble you've caused and ignore the contributions you've made to other people's lives. My contributions are nothing compared to my troubles. They have to be something, because love is a two-way street. Leo leaned in so close they could feel each other's breath. You don't have to get attention through submission and begging anymore, because what you've done deserves to be loved. Leo had found it strange when he was reading the diary. A diary is a personal thing. People usually write about their own contributions. But Evelyn only wrote about how good others were her and how terrible she was. Who doesn't praise themselves in their own diary? Her heart was still stuck in childhood. She subconsciously downplayed her own contributions while fixating on her flaws, constantly tearing herself down. It was a product of her upbringing. The death of her parents traumatized her. Her only relative, her aunt, had 3 children of her own. Did she really have the energy to carefully nurture a traumatized child? No. All that was left for Evelyn was strict discipline and manipulation. It was the most time and energy-efficient way to manage a child. Then, at the orphanage, she finally made a friend. But what right does a child growing up in an orphanage have to decide their own life? She had drifted all her life. Why could the rest of her life be written down in just a few thin pages? Because her heart was still stuck in her childhood. This terrible environment had forged her personality. Evelyn didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stared at Leo. She had spent her whole life searching, busily, restlessly searching. And she had finally found that thing that didn't exist. I don't want to die anymore, Leo. Let me down. Call me master. Leo, contrary to his usual self, was suddenly in the mood, his expression strangely playful. No. Evelyn, on the other hand, became shy. So that's why you call me master. Leo shook his head, a huge, happy grin on his face. Let me down first. Not going to cook yourself anymore. Does an impotent man have the right to mock me? Evelyn had never lost a verbal spar twice in her life. Who are you calling impotent? I'm talking about you. A normal man would have had his spear emerge like a dragon 800 times by now. Evelyn looked annoyed at the mention of this, rolling her eyes in frustration. My body has really gotten a raw deal being stuck with me for life. I found a man whose spear takes more effort to emerge than hanging himself. I can't even imagine how hard the future will be. It's already difficult, and there's a whole line of people waiting. This is a church. It's not right. Did he really think Leo didn't want to? But he always felt there was something creepy about a church. He glanced around at the statues and murals. He could have sworn the Virgin Mary's eyes were moving, staring right at him. What's so wrong with it? I've thought of a new suicide method. Evelyn's eyes darted around mischievously. She beckoned Leo closer and whispered in his ear, think about it. My body is already weak, and you're so strong. When you don't want me anymore, you can just do it a few more times and finish me off. Can you not say these things in a church? I'm getting the chills. But Evelyn had no intention of stopping. I've decided to give this method of death a simple, easy-to-understand name. I don't want to hear it, Leo refused firmly. Evelyn quickly leaned close to his ear and whispered, let's call it, fuck to death. Jesus Christ. Seeing the vivid expression on her little man's face, Evelyn smiled happily. She began to recall a past event. An event about why she called him Master. How did he go from little brother to Master? It was after she tried to drown herself in the lake. Leo had saved her. She was soaking wet, wrapped in his jacket. They were in the suburbs. It would take an hour to get cab. That day, they took the subway home. At the time, Evelyn didn't know how to face Leo. She expected to be scolded or lectured. Anyone would feel ashamed after a suicide attempt. But Leo said nothing. He just kept his head down, fiddling with his phone. He even held it up and asked if she wanted to play Flappy Bird. Don't you have anything to say about my suicide attempt? Next time, pick a closer spot. Leo didn't even look up, just offered his phone again. Are you going to play or not? I can't get past the second pipe. If you can, I'll do your homework for a week, Leo said nonchalantly. Evelyn didn't take the phone. She just sat on the subway, leaning against his shoulder, watching the station signs go by one after another. She watched countless people get on, their curious eyes on the two soaking wet figures. Evelyn was extremely sensitive to strange looks. But that day, she wasn't sensitive at all. She looked at her reflection in the opposite window and smiled softly. Her whole life had been like a long pilgrimage, searching for a temple in the desert. And the being in that temple, the thing she had been seeking her whole life, was a person who could still speak to her gently. Lean back in a second, my arms going numb, the Leo on the subway had murmured. The Leo in the church now patted her gently. In her mind, the two Leos, the one on the subway and the one taking her down from the cross, gradually merged into one. All she had ever sought in her life was someone who could see her darkness and still speak to her in a soft voice. It's a well-known fact that a move called Spear of the Dragon pairs best with one called 13 Deadly Strikes. And if you're going for deadly, you don't hold back. You go for the kill. There's just one problem. Dr. Shaw, by her own admission, had the constitution of a porcelain doll. Her defense stat was practically zero. This meant the impending competition was likely to lack a certain sportsmanship. On one hand, true sportsmanship meant giving your all as a sign of respect for your opponent. On the other, it also meant friendship first, competition second. And so, Leo Miller firmly rejected Evelyn Shaw's proposal to hold their tournament on the hallowed grounds of the church. He practically dragged her back to her apartment. Honestly, Leo was a fan of limited edition skins, and he appreciated a limited edition map, too. But a limited edition map with security cameras was a deal-breaker. However, Leo's utter lack of competitive spirit had deeply offended Dr. Shaw. You're such a casual, she grumbled, still clad in her nun's habit. Leo just sighed, exasperated. He truly didn't get her. Evelyn Shaw was a walking contradiction. You'd think she wanted to die, what with the habit and the length of rope she had stashed in her apartment. But then you'd think she didn't want to die, seeing as she'd run off to a church to put herself on trial. Her only answer was a smirk. Of course I want to die, and getting fucked to death is still dying. Sometimes, Leo couldn't be blamed for letting the little head do the thinking. He instinctively reached for the rope in her hands, but she pulled it away. This isn't for me, she said. It's for you. Leo froze. Excuse me? That wasn't how this was supposed to work. Men love contrast, don't they? It would get boring if I was always the one being tied up, she whispered, crawling across the bed to get closer, her breath warm against his ear. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Let me prove my point. Just imagine for a second. It's Isabella Vance. She's docilely handing you the rope, completely submissive, ready for you to do whatever you want. Isn't that a more thrilling image than me doing the same? Leo let out a heavy breath, the image blooming, unwanted, in his mind. Isabella in a maid's outfit, completely obedient. He couldn't even finish the thought. My time now. No thinking about other women, Evelyn said, straightening up and tapping him on the head. She didn't use her hand. Seeing the utterly dumbfounded look on his face, a brilliant, mischievous smile spread across hers. They both knew, deep down, what a future together would look like. No one understood better than Evelyn, the psychologist, just how fragile her inner world was beneath the composed exterior. Her spirit wasn't built to last. She needed a stronger, more stable core to anchor her to this world. In the future, she was destined to be a moon orbiting Leo's planet. In her eyes, the world had dealt her a terrible hand, and she felt it owed her. So she fought back with extremity. But Leo owed her nothing. So, from the bottom of her heart, she wanted to make him happy. Her logic was just that simple. Evelyn, Leo said, sitting cross-legged by the window and taking a deep breath. He gently repositioned her as she tried to coil around him again. The little head could be in charge, but only after the big head had finished its work. I know you've probably never even thought about marriage, but there's something I have to say. You know my situation better than anyone. You know I'm not uncomplicated. Oh, are you done? The look on her face screamed. Hurry up so we can get to the main event. One last question. Do you want to get married? Leo, I know my body better than anyone. Having a child would be a catastrophe for me. So we just make sure to save you. Evelyn stared at him, then rolled her eyes with an exasperated sigh. Do you have any medical knowledge at all? Do you think it's as simple as just saying you will save the mother? Then we just don't have kids. Leo, you have Miller blood. That means having children is non-negotiable for you, she said, getting off the bed and pouring a glass of water. The hem of her habit swayed, offering a tantalizing glimpse of her thigh. If Peyton asked you for a child, would you say no? She's not even asking for a ring, just a baby. How could you refuse her? I see your point, Leo sighed, leaning against the windowsill in silence. As long as he was destined to have an heir, the car crash that had defined his life could very well be repeated for the next generation. His fate recycled, because the rest of the Miller clan had different blood. An heir was a necessity. The patriarch's last words were starting to make a horrifying amount of sense. That's not for you to worry about, Leo said, turning back to her. He would handle it. If you worry about me, I'll worry about you. Love is a two-way street, she said with a soft smile, sitting on the edge of the bed and locking her eyes with his. And I'm not just thinking about that. I can help you with the other girls, too. I definitely don't need your help with that. Too bad. Just because I've been saved doesn't mean my personality gets erased. I've got a whole arsenal of wicked plans I've been dying to use. Leo shot her a look of weary resignation. Then he looked again, and his expression shifted to one of pure shock. Something round and full had appeared before him, without warning, completely unexpected. You, he breathed, are impossible not to love and hate at the same time. The water of the lake was calm today, but the calmest things are often the most terrifying. Years ago, a mythic serpent had caused a flood right here. And in an apartment not far from the lake, another flood was brewing. Leo had strongly resisted being tied up, but they made a deal. No matter what, he was not to move, not even to open his eyes. Evelyn had insisted that closing his eyes would heighten his other senses, that the fantasies born from pure feeling were the most beautiful part. Leo had agreed. After all, she was the professional. So, as he lay there with his eyes shut, only one image came to mind. A great tsunami crashing against a lone mountain peak. The towering mountain plunged headfirst into the raging water. For the first time, Leo felt a strange kinship with the monk from the old story. This enchantress had to be stopped. She had to be thoroughly and utterly vanquished. He couldn't help but open his eyes. The room was dark, but the city lights filtering through the window provided a soft glow. After keeping your eyes closed for a long time, vision inevitably blurs. As his eyes adjusted, the form of Evelyn above him was indistinct, shimmering, like the phantom projection of a deity cast down upon the mortal world. Reincarnated gods often had tragic origins and difficult lives. It was part of their trial. Evelyn, he murmured, do you still feel unlucky? Misfortune is an immutable fact of my existence, she whispered, biting her lip against a pang of pain, a strange flush coloring her pale face. But meeting you was the one stroke of luck in a lifetime of misfortune. Leo was beginning to think he'd underestimated Evelyn Shaw. There is an old saying, the tough are afraid of the reckless, and the reckless are afraid of the one who doesn't fear death. Evelyn's body was weak, true, but she genuinely didn't fear death. Watching her, drenched in sweat, utterly exhausted but still relentlessly, blissfully pushing forward, Leo didn't dare move a muscle. He just closed his eyes and accepted his fate. You're not falling asleep, are you? Of course not. With a shuddering gasp, Evelyn collapsed beside him, curling up in his arms to catch her breath. How did you get your memory back today? She asked, her curiosity piqued. She couldn't figure out why it had happened so suddenly. She'd always thought emotions were the trigger, that it would require a specific catalyst. Because of Vesper, Leo said, propping himself up against the headboard. He ran his hand through Evelyn's hair. She purred with contentment. Honestly, he owed the recovery of his memory entirely to Vesper. Because Leo hadn't remembered a thing. All the details of their past, all of Evelyn's sacrifices, Vesper had filled him in on the way over. That's why, after Evelyn mentioned suicide, he had left the church, only to walk right back in. It was all a calculated bluff, a way to project an aura of confidence he didn't feel, to make Evelyn think he had it all figured out. After he said that, Evelyn went quiet. She had fallen fast asleep. She really had been at death's door. Leo got up and dressed, slipping out of the apartment into the night. Back at the church, the priest was about to start cursing. One after another, what was with all these people running to a church in the middle of the night? Doesn't God get his sleep? Father, you must know Evelyn Shaw quite well, right? Leo asked, offering the priest a cigarette. Not one cigarette, a whole carton. The priest's expression softened considerably. He adjusted his glasses and sighed. I transferred from Riverbend to this city, and I still can't escape that child. Do you remember me? If you're only offering one carton, then no, I don't think I do. Uncle Michael, it's you. The priest started, looking Leo up and down. You, I always said it. You two should be together. What's that supposed to mean? Leo asked, scratching his head in confusion. Because God approves of you. The priest's statements were getting more cryptic by the second. He pulled out a small radio and started playing a loop of hymns. And so, all the world's misfortunes have an end. So where is Evelyn's end? You are, the priest said, poking Leo's shoulder. He seemed amazed that the little kid who used to run around calling him Uncle Michael was now so grown. To her, you are God's blessing. So, I do all the work and God gets all the credit? He's got some nerve, Leo scoffed. Honestly, he wasn't sure why he'd come here himself. He wanted to find his own memories, but had no idea where to start. Some instinct had just led him here. Vesper had been the one to tell him about the priest, and Vesper had arranged the meeting. Vesper wanted to join the game, but that was out of the question. Vesper, the tragic side character, had joked she was less useful than a tank in a video game. Father, I've forgotten everything about Evelyn. Is there any way you can help me remember? Forgetting is a gift God gave you. Without it, you and she might never have reached this day. Leo paused. The priest actually had a point. But I want to remember. Then think about the one connection between you. I'm the patient, she's the doctor. Or I'm the little brother, she's the big sister. The priest shook his head and pointed to Leo's heart. It's love. Love is what allowed you to run across the vast expanse of time to find each other today. But was there really love for her in my past? And there it is, the priest said with a satisfied smile, patting Leo's shoulder. You see, you aren't chasing lost memories. You're trying to find out if love for her existed in your past. Doesn't that narrow the scope of your search? It does, but aren't they the same thing? No. You need to understand what love is. Is it a projection of your own deficiencies or a vessel for life's emotions? Is loving someone about taking or about giving? I don't get it. You do. Because God is watching you. Ugh, can you please not talk in circles at a time like this? I'm serious. God is watching you. If you don't believe me, turn around. Leo whipped his head around. Wrapped in an oversized coat, Evelyn Shaw was leaning against the main door of the church, silent in the cold wind, a devastatingly beautiful smile on her face. They looked at each other from across the sanctuary. The priest's hoarse voice echoed in his ear. The underlying logic of a lover and God is the same. When you first meet your love, you see them through a beautiful filter, a filter born from your own fantasies. God's power comes from the same place, humanity's hopes and dreams. But as you walk alongside your lover, you find that filter slowly dissolving. The fantasy is shattered by the reality of life. It's the same with God. You find he can't grant all your wishes. But do you abandon your lover then? No, because you have found the meaning of your existence in each other. Leo stood frozen, leaning against a pew, staring at the beautiful, tragic figure in the wind. He couldn't speak. Under God's watchful eye, words failed them. But Leo's mind, his mind had something to say. The images flashed. A sunny afternoon. A little boy, used to being alone, heats up leftovers after his mom leaves for work. He wanders the streets. He doesn't drink soda every day. It's too expensive. But today is the 4th of July. Everyone else is at the park with their parents. He decides to treat himself to a Coke. And then he meets a big sister, another lonely soul. He thinks she's the greatest person in the world. She's willing to hang out with him, talk to him, even share a bag of Funyuns. That kid Kevin from the other class is such a jerk. Just because girls like me, he's always making snide remarks. I could take it, but then he said my mom was just another factory worker at his family's plant. You can talk crap about me, but not my mom. That's it. I have to fight him. If I don't do it today, he'll be walking all over me tomorrow. I beat him up pretty bad. It was reckless. I don't have money to pay for it. I saw the big sister while I was fighting. Damn it. I wanted to keep a good image in her mind. She already didn't seem to recognize me. And now her impression is probably even worse. I spent days on edge, but nothing happened. No one came asking for money. Thank you, God. Thank you, universe. That bastard manager, Rick, cheated me out of my pay. I could handle it. But what about the guys who work with me at the electronics store? They're all just trying to get by, waiting for their daily wages. If I don't get paid, they'll have my hide. But none of them came after me. Rick must have had a rare moment of conscience. Thank God again. I saw the big sister again. And again, at the worst possible moment of my life. The boy hanging from a tree doesn't get to meet the kind big sister. What kind of script is this? She's so good, the warmest person in the world. She's given me therapy. Her voice is so gentle every day. It feels like all my work stress just melts away. What? The big sister is suicidal? Which bastard drove her to this? I pulled her out of the lake, looking at her soaked to the bone. For once, even I didn't know what to say. She's so fragile. The big sister has probably forgotten me by now. That's okay. I can't do much, but I'll help however I can. Big sister, I hope you're okay. In the church, it was Leo's turn to cry. The water of the lake, my tears. Different scenes overlapped in his blurring vision. The you in your own eyes, and the you in the eyes of others. Which one is the real you? Could your misfortune be someone else's luck? Who are you and who am I? We are all born naked. Evelyn had left the house barefoot. She walked on the cold stone floor of the church, slowly approaching the man in the distance. A bad omen and a church are natural enemies. A person walking barefoot can never reach the far ends of the universe. She said nothing, just buried herself in Leo's embrace. When you embrace your lover, heart to naked heart, you touch the endpoint of the universe, all the facets of existence collapsing into a single point. The priest stood with his back to the door, flanked by candles flickering in the wind. He bowed his head before the altar and prayed softly. God blesses the good children, and for the bad children, he seeks redemption. Luck and misfortune both have their end, whether you are a good child or a bad one. Since God created you equal, go forth and love with all your heart. God will grant you a fire in your heart that will never be extinguished. Evelyn, in my memories, you're no different from God. Me? She didn't respond, unsure how to. She couldn't see the connection. Put yourself in my shoes. You're a little boy. You meet a big sister who hangs out with you for a month, then silently watches over you for a decade, always showing up right when you need her. That's a real-life guardian angel. My motives were selfish. It was about possession. God's motives aren't always pure, either. Evelyn didn't answer. She was draped over Leo's back as he carried her, and she felt a little short of breath. Leo, I think my condition might be getting worse. I'm having trouble breathing. Maybe don't hold on so tight. She loosened her arms and instantly felt better. You're right. You're a miracle worker. Your airbag quality is just top-notch. That compliment is way more interesting than being called a god. Evelyn had left barefoot precisely because she had no intention of walking back. She wrapped her arms loosely around his neck. She didn't agree with the god talk, but she understood what Leo really meant. Leo, do you know why I chose to leave Riverbend to die this time? She asked, launching into a lecture. It's because of imposter syndrome. Someone with chronic low self-esteem will inevitably build up a fantasy of a certain kind of life. The moment that fantasy is about to come true, an intense feeling of unworthiness hits, causing them to either flee or try to change. All she got in return was a merciless eye roll. You can talk the talk, but it's all useless. Because after trying to change so many times, the only lesson I've learned is that people can't be changed. She struggled to get down from his back. A person's body is made of flesh and blood, but a person's soul is made of experience and time. Forcing someone who's never had a Hershey's Kiss to describe the taste is nothing short of a violent crime. Leo smelled the damp, salty air from the lake and nodded quietly. He didn't argue. He only asked, "Do you still want to die?" The wind swept through her hair. She turned and gave him a look full of meaning. "I still might." "Okay." Leo turned and started walking away. "Look at my little brother. Such a hothead," she said with a knowing smile, pulling him back. She reached up and tapped his nose. "If I'd known you had such a bad temper, I wouldn't have played with you as a kid. It's not too late for you to leave now. It is too late. When a person has been woven through the entire fabric of your life, how can you possibly live without them?" She looked at him, her eyes filled with a sick, desperate adoration. She had always known she couldn't be changed. Could someone invent a time machine, go back, and rewrite her experiences? In all those nights away from Leo, the only thing connecting them was her own fantasy. In the dead of night, tossing and turning, she had yearned for something real. Even if it's pain, we could try other feelings. But she just kept shaking her head. "It's not the pain that makes me attached to you. It's the gentle words that come after. I make trouble to get real attention. The form of attention is punishment. And the gentle words after the punishment are what will forever chain me to you. Leo just nodded again silently. He didn't object. If you laid out every possible way to live life, you could find a flaw in almost all of them. The traditional path, marriage, kids, family bliss, was simply the one with the highest tolerance for error, the one that suited the most people. It became a road because so many had walked it before, testing it for you. But even that standardized template was rejected by many. In the end, how you lived was up to you. Leo, you have to treat me like a pet. Otherwise, I'll die, she said, her tone shifting from a gentle big sister to something cold and demanding. She continued to mumble what sounded like a mix between a life manual and a pet care guide. I don't like going out, I probably can't have kids, and I'll occasionally cause trouble. What might be a light rain to others could be a life-threatening illness for me. She started laughing at her own description. I don't care what anyone else thinks, but on one condition. You have to make me feel, with absolute certainty, that I am your private property. As long as that feeling exists, my existence in this world has meaning. So, I should just get a chain and put it around your neck? Leo joked, but when he turned, he saw the look of eager anticipation in her eyes. Ahem, I was kidding. That's a little too much. Dude, times have changed. On the street, that's perverted. At home, it's a kink. Her words were a devil's whisper, echoing in his ear. For once, Leo was silent, his expression a priceless mix of shock and something else. An image had popped into his head, and for a young man in the prime of his life, it was inevitable that his gaze would land on Evelyn. The renowned psychologist knew that look. Oh, so now you're not worried about my fragile little body getting broken. I think you can handle it. Evelyn tilted her head and smiled. This was the look she loved, devoid of civilized reason, filled only with the primal urge for possession, like a beast about to tear her apart. And she loved it. It branded her broken, lost soul, binding her body along with it. Prisoners weren't the only ones who were tied down, so were patients with broken legs and souls who could never go home. She moved away, looking up at the breaking dawn and the moon, now just a hazy phantom. She walked faster and faster on her bare feet until she reached Vesper, who was pretending to admire the lake with her back to them. Evelyn tapped her on the shoulder. He didn't know what they said, but a moment later Vesper was stomping over, grumbling under her breath. She pulled out her phone, got into position, and took a picture of them. The photo captured a scenic winter path by the lake. A tall man and a slender woman stood side by side. He wore a thin hoodie. His black jacket was draped over the woman in the white dress. Above them, the newly risen sun and the faint moon shared the sky. Leo stared at the picture, speechless. Beauty was a staggering concept. He looked up at Evelyn, who was leaning against the railing, feeling the wind. Maybe it was a rule set by the gods, but beauty was always fleeting, like a firework blooming in the sky. But Leo was selfish, too. Who wasn't? He didn't want beautiful things to fade. A child like Evelyn, who had been breaking the rules since birth, wasn't about to start living by them now. How would he keep her from being just a fleeting spark? He didn't know, but he looked at her again. Her thin frame looked like a candle flame about to be extinguished by the cold wind. But when she turned to him, the light in her eyes was unstoppable. Leo smiled for no reason. The flame of the body will go out, but the flame of the soul is eternal. So yes, the water of the lake, my tears. I would rather for you become a burning fire. P.S. Love you, my super invincible T-Rex. There wasn't much to pack in Evelyn's suitcase. It was a tiny thing. When she finally woke up, she found all her things had been neatly packed away. Leo was gone. She didn't call to ask where he was. For now, she was at peace. The precious feeling of not being abandoned is something only the homeless can truly understand. She finally had the mental space for other things, like reshaping the paper flowers on her desk or buying stickers to decorate the fridge. She wasn't plagued by the anxiety of making a mistake or worrying about the future. No matter if her damn man was poor, rich, or begging on the street, he wouldn't leave her. That was more than enough. But when Leo hadn't come back by noon, the anxiety started to creep in. She paced the room, telling herself over and over not to call him. The act of calling would be his psychological signal, proof that she was questioning his promise not to abandon her. Doubt, once it appeared, was like a crack in a wall. It would only grow over time. Then, there was a knock at the door. Assuming it was Leo, she boldly threw the door open. But it was someone completely unexpected. Brooke. Hi, Evelyn. Brooke stood there, and behind her was Maria, the owner of the pet shop. They were holding gift boxes, leaving Evelyn completely bewildered. Isn't it your birthday today? My birthday. Evelyn pointed at her own face. She hadn't celebrated her birthday in years. With no one to celebrate with, she had long since forgotten about it. Your boyfriend told us, Brooke said, eagerly wrapping an arm around Evelyn's shoulder and whispering. You're so good at keeping secrets, Evelyn, hiding such a handsome boyfriend from all of us. He came to find you? Where is he now? Right here. Leo popped his head in the door, carrying a large paper bag. He sat on the table and pulled out a sleek, black bracelet. Your birthday present. Why a bracelet all of a sudden? Because this isn't just any bracelet, Leo said conspiratorially. This is a super accurate GPS tracking bracelet. At least, that's what the seller told me. As long as you're wearing this, I'll know exactly where you are, even if you're on the other side of the country. Just from that description, I can tell it's some Amazon knockoff. Whatever. Evelyn didn't press the issue. She slipped the black stone bracelet on her wrist. It had a nice, solid feel. Besides the tracking, it had other functions, but that was the only one she needed. You don't have to wear one, Leo. It's not like I don't trust you. Do you really trust me? He asked, studying her expression with interest. He picked up the matching bracelet and put it on. Tell me, this morning, when I was gone without a word, were you anxious? Evelyn nodded. Leo pointed to his own wrist. And now? Evelyn shook her head. Then let's eat. Life is made of ordinary moments. A happy day might just be a weekend afternoon, with a few old friends gathered around a hot pot, sharing what's been happening in their lives. Complaining, bragging, venting. In these moments, lives intertwine, forming little tribes within a larger society. You have your identity in the big world, and you have your identity in the small tribe. The value of these identities is debatable, but together, they become the proof of your existence. A bubbly Brooke announced that she was about to become an official state employee. Hooray for getting a real job. Maria said she was still living the same quiet life, just planning to get a new car after the new year, which made Brooke tease her for being a rich person humble bragger. When it was Evelyn's turn, she hesitated. She had never shared her experiences with anyone but Leo. She couldn't forget being at the orphanage, all the kids sitting in a row telling their stories, and how she became the bad luck charm who had killed her parents. I had amnesia, Leo spoke up first. That's why she came to this city. The word amnesia, when it happens to someone you know, is bombshell news. Brooke and Maria both put down their chopsticks and stared at him. Leo continued, after I lost my memory, we had some problems because I didn't remember her. I'd be heartbroken too if that happened to me, Brooke said, immediately sympathizing with Evelyn. But Evelyn instinctively felt Leo's version was wrong. It was my fault too. I kept doing things he couldn't understand. I didn't fulfill my responsibilities. Evelyn, that's not right, Brooke countered, now on Leo's side. Someone with amnesia is bound to be vulnerable. You have to take care of him. I have some issues. Mental health issues, Evelyn said, the words a struggle. She watched their faces, expecting looks of shock, but no one looked surprised. Evelyn, I've seen it all over the internet. Everyone's got some kind of mental thing these days, Brooke said, sticking her tongue out. Sometimes I think I'm a little messed up too. Whenever I pass a fruit stand, I get this urge to smash all the watermelons. She then stuffed a large piece of lamb into her mouth. Leo picked up the thread again. Hers is more serious. It's related to her childhood. At that, Brooke and Maria looked up again, ready for a story. Evelyn was trapped. She clenched her fists and forced the words out. My parents passed away when I was very young. She stopped there, but Leo was determined to get all out. He filled in the rest. Her grandmother passed away, too. She grew up in an orphanage. Her family called her a jinx, said she brought death to everyone around her. Evelyn couldn't stop him in time. She could only lower her head, try to avoid their eyes. She was trembling. She didn't want their pity or their judgment. She was so tired of hearing it. But when she finally managed to look up, she saw that Brooke's eyes were red. Oh, Evelyn, you're so strong, Brooke sniffled. Let me tell you, when my grandmother passed away when I was a kid. The air was still that day, filled only with the sound of 3 women at a table, sharing their sorrows. The birthday party had turned into a misery contest. Leo quietly gave them their space, leaning against the window and looking out at the city. There was no grand logic or trick to it. He simply wanted her to say the words out loud, to make her realize that life doesn't have as big an audience as she thinks, and to make her see that what should be seen in that painful past isn't the pain. It's the strength. With red-rimmed eyes, Evelyn came over and hugged him from behind. She didn't speak, either. Knowing and doing are 2 different things. She knew what Leo was trying to do, but she couldn't do it herself. She moved around to face him, stood on her toes, and gave him a light, fleeting kiss. To see my past and share my spring. To know my darkness and grant me dawn. In the alley below the apartment building, a little three-legged dog named Lucky, who had run away from Evelyn's apartment, was gnawing on a bone with a pack of strays. None of the other dogs seemed to be bullying him, because this little pack of strays each had their own tragedy. One with burns, another missing an ear, another with a skin disease. The dogs wagged their tails, as if celebrating their freedom to roam the streets. The city's mottled walls with concert posters torn down and pasted over. The huge pits dug for a new subway line. The shoe repairman on the corner waving a hand with only 4 fingers, bragging it was cut off in a gang fight in his youth. The blind masseuse listening to an audiobook in a rocking chair. If the world is full of flaws, it means the world allows flaws to exist. 5 days until New Year's. In the dead of night, Leo finally returned to Riverbend. Peyton picked him up and took him to her apartment. Right now, Peyton, wearing an apron, set a plate of fried eggs on the table, watching Leo wolf them down while Evelyn was passed out on the couch. Her expression was strange. What's wrong with Dr. Shaw? We were up a little late last night. But why is she sleeping on her stomach? Her ass is sore. Leo ate ravenously, completely oblivious to the implications of his words. It was only when he noticed Peyton had gone silent that he looked up. He was met with a pair of incredibly resentful eyes. She said nothing, which somehow said everything. But Leo was just too damn tired. After the night he'd had, plus the early flight he hadn't slept for, the short trip back to Riverbend offered no chance for rest. The only thing keeping him from passing out was the need for a full meal. Seeing him like this, Peyton couldn't help but sigh. She was starting to realize that this twisted emotional dynamic was going to be a permanent part of her life. She thought her past relationship with Leo was complicated. She had no idea. Hello, I'm the mistress here. Right now, Leo looked exactly like a husband who, after a night out with his side piece, was being forced by his wife to perform his marital duties. He was one step away from saying, "Honey, I'm a little tired. Next time I promise." Peyton bit her lip and turned away. She didn't have the title of a wife, but she was getting all the treatment of one. It wasn't until Leo said he was staying the night that her face lit up. She went and made him a cup of wellness tea. Get some rest. And she meant it. Watching her pull out earplugs, an eye mask, and a whole suite of sleep aid from a drawer, Leo couldn't help but laugh wearily. He stretched, glanced at the sleeping Evelyn, and while Peyton was rummaging in the drawer, he scooped Evelyn up and carried her into the guest bedroom. 20 years old. The man was made of iron. No rest needed. Evelyn dreamed of sunshine, rainbows, and a white pony. It was the kind of romantic, girly dream she had no business having. So she woke up. It was Leo's phone, buzzing on the table. His ringtone was some obnoxiously cheerful pop song. She groggily sat up and glanced at the caller ID. She was about to decline the call when she heard a faint noise coming from the master bedroom. Evelyn froze for 3 seconds, forcing her brain to boot up. She hit the answer button, walked over to the master bedroom, and knocked. "Leo, you have a call." "Ignore it. Should I bring it in to you?" "No, I'm busy." "Oh, okay." The conversation, along with the strange, muffled sounds from inside the room, were all picked up by the phone's microphone. Evelyn then added, "For good measure, he's busy." "Didn't he say he was coming back to Riverbend today?" A cold voice asked from the phone. "If he wasn't in Riverbend, he'd only have to be busy with me. Now that he's back, there are more people to be busy with. When will he be done?" "You might have to wait a while," Evelyn said, taking a bite of fried egg. She chewed for a moment. Then a wicked smile spread across her face. "Because I want to be busy to tell Leo the first have something important to discuss with him." "Okay." Evelyn got up and knocked on the door again. "Leo, she says she has something important to tell you." "Who is it?" Evelyn didn't answer him. Instead, she asked the phone, "Sorry, I forgot to ask. Who is this?" "Evelyn Shaw, are you insane?" The voice on the phone was furious, practically ready to crawl through the screen and tear her apart. "Ah," Evelyn feigned surprise. "I remember now. It's Ms. Vance, isn't it? About my memory. Leo remembers everything. Are you sick? Why are you telling me this? What's the point of a victory if you can't rub it in your rival's face? You think I'm afraid of you just because he remembers?" Hearing Isabella's defiant words, Evelyn said nothing. She simply held the phone against the door. "Listen, Ms. Vance, a 20-year-old Leo is a force of nature, but his output is a little high. At this rate, by the time you've fought your way to the top, who knows what he'll have left to give. What are you trying to say?" Isabella was clearly rattled. "Would you like to hear my plan, Ms. Vance? Not only am I a professional, but I also have a freshly documented track record of success. I don't need it." Isabella Vance was not a woman who took orders. "Oh, well, then you can listen a little longer." Evelyn went silent, just holding the phone there. 5 minutes later, Isabella Vance the woman who never took orders, finally spoke. You have a treatment plan that his primary doctor doesn't. It's worth a shot, isn't it? Better than the current situation. I'm fine right now, Isabella insisted. The price of her stubbornness was more listening. Are you still fine, Ms. Vance? Let's schedule a meeting. Sooner rather than later. New Year's is almost here. You wouldn't want to be left out of the family dinner, would you? Fine. Evelyn hung up and sat back down at the table, unable to suppress a smirk. Amnesia was subjective, sure, but now that she had 2 case studies to compare, she had plenty of data to work with. She had just taken another bite of egg when Peyton emerged from the bedroom, her face flushed. Peyton was a little embarrassed to see her awake, but Evelyn just brazenly looked her up and down, offering an unsolicited compliment. I'm so jealous of your stamina. To be able to enjoy it for that long. I'm still sore. Isn't it a little early for us to be swapping notes? Peyton wasn't petty. She was conceptually open-minded about these things. But open-minded or not, it was still a first. This whole situation, discussing her man with another woman, still felt strange. But when it came to tolerance for strangeness, no one could beat Evelyn Shaw. And simple discussion clearly wasn't her only goal. So when can we do it together? I could be open to it, but that's up to Leo. Peyton's response was strained, clearly shocked by the question. But Evelyn acted as if she'd heard something wonderful. She leaned in close to Peyton and whispered, "Why don't we go try right now?" Evelyn's wish was destined to go unfulfilled. Peyton was currently in a state of complete physical and mental satisfaction. There was no need. "Let's talk business," Peyton said, stepping out of the shower and sitting at the table, crossing her legs. "Where do you want to buy a house?" "I have my own house and car. That's yours. I don't like living off a man. When you eat someone else's food, you have to follow their orders." "You still got a sharp tongue, doctor." "The condescension just rolls off it," Peyton said, twirling a teacup, her face impassive. Though Evelyn's living off a man comment was clearly a broadside attack against her entire lifestyle, she wasn't angry. If you didn't have that much composure, you had no business living this life. "Doctor, if you find work too tiring, you should rest. The family can support you," Peyton said, taking a sip from a mug. It was the half-empty mug of wellness tea Leo had left behind. This move was a display of class. Your opponent's attack glances off your armor, and you respond by showing how unbothered you are. In the spacious living room, with the 2 women seated opposite each other at the kitchen island, a battlefield of palace intrigue had unfolded. There were no drawn swords, only the probing of boundaries. Leo's life seemed great on the surface, and in practice, it was pretty great. But tying everyone together under one roof was a joke. You get into fights living with your own mother long-term, let alone with a group of people with this kind of complicated relationship. A healthy distance is the start of all beautiful things. So when Evelyn had suggested her "let's all get together" idea, Peyton knew she couldn't predict this woman's next move. She had preemptively brought up buying a house, clearly drawing the first boundary. The subtext: get your own place and move out. Staying here is not an option. Evelyn had obviously understood, so she had countered by stating she didn't need a house, while landing a powerful blow of her own. She was simply demonstrating her aggression. The meaning: just because I'm on your side now doesn't mean my personality has been erased. Don't treat me like a friend. I'm still a threat. Peyton understood her aggression too, and she chose to respond with class. The meaning: even though we're not friends, I can still offer appropriate help. We're a family now, so instead of fighting, we should try to get along. Faced with this answer, Evelyn nodded. She said only one thing: you don't need to waste your energy worrying about me. I never worry about you. The one I worry about is someone else. If you're talking about Ms. Vance, I'll take care of her for you, Evelyn said, her eyes twinkling as she spoke calmly. So, could I trouble you to drive me home? Watching Evelyn's retreating figure walk into her apartment complex, Peyton sat in the car and sighed, turning on a radio and just sitting in the quiet for a moment. She'd never been too worried about Evelyn. They weren't even in the same league. Evelyn was a creature of the mind. She'd been through every hardship imaginable, except for financial ones. She had her own spiritual goals. But Peyton was a realist. Their objectives didn't clash. And if worse came to worst, and she agreed to try Evelyn's together idea, what was the big deal? But everyone else? She couldn't help but worry about them. Life itself was a competition. She wasn't afraid of that. The best things in life are expensive. You want a limited edition bag from Louis Vuitton, you have to hit a spending quota first. If Rick Miller posted a casual message on social media looking for a girlfriend for his son, the line of women would stretch from the top of the hill to the bottom of the valley. You don't just wait for good things to fall into your lap. Leo slept straight through until the middle of the night. He glanced at the Amazon Echo on the nightstand, 2 a.m., and at Peyton, curled up asleep beside him. He tried to go back to sleep, but he just tossed and turned. He slipped out of bed, quietly used the bathroom, and was about to order some takeout when he saw the toast and a small note on the dining table. Don't eat takeout. Just heat this up in the microwave. A knowing smile spread across Leo's face. After getting his food, he sat at the table and opened his phone. There were the usual daily messages. The daily report from the workgroup chat for the Cypress Lounge. He just skimmed it. His fiancée's daily check-in. Willow, Leo, where did you go? Replying to Willow Shung was simple. He just sent her his location. The benefit was that Willow could then pass the info along to his mom, saving him the third degree later. Then there was Peyton's daily summary. What time she left, what time she got home, any issues at the bar. She sent it whether he replied or not. Her whole brand was being low maintenance. Even though she was sleeping right next to him, Leo still replied to each of her messages, one by one. The virtual world and the real world were different, and sometimes they had to be treated as separate entities. Showing you cared in the virtual world was just as important. Imagine Peyton waking up, seeing Leo gone, but finding his detailed replies on her phone. Wouldn't that make her happy? Details determine success. Ed Miller, that was usually it. Everyone else had their own lives and didn't chat much online unless it was important. But today, it seemed like everyone had messaged him. Evelyn, I see your location is still at Peyton's. When are you coming to feed me? Evelyn, not replying. Here's some cash. Money transfer Evelyn. Still not awake? Here's a little treat for you. Evelyn. Image attached, those were from earlier. She was probably asleep by now. Leo said nothing, just snapped a picture of himself eating and sent it back. He reacted to her treat with a thumbs-up emoji. Then he accepted the money transfer. Waste not, why not? The photo had certainly piqued his interest. He scrolled to the next chat, hoping for more. But his face fell instantly. The food in his mouth turned to ash. Rick Miller, son, family meeting the day after tomorrow. Are you coming? Leo, if I have time. He grumbled and backed out of the chat with his dad. No other messages. Don't even ask why there wasn't one from Isabella Vance. She considered it a loss if she ever messaged him first. Leo had finished eating. He stretched out contentedly on the rug beneath the massive floor-to-ceiling window. It was pure bliss. A college student on winter break, waking up at midnight next to his sleeping girlfriend, finding a late-night snack she prepared for him, eating his fill in his own apartment, looking out at the glittering city lights. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in his bank account, all earned by himself. A string of messages from girls who cared about him. The only fly in the ointment was his deadbeat dad. But the good news was his dad was rich and actively trying to make up for lost time. Sometimes Leo thought this kind of life was pretty good. He could get used to it. He didn't care if people called him unambitious, a man with simple tastes. For him, a life like this hadn't come easy. As he was enjoying the moment, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It was Skylar Reed. P.S. Love you, cat. Skylar, Leo, what you doin'? Even through the screen, Leo could feel the boundless energy in her words. Leo lying down. Skylar, would you be willing to be an ambitious youth for once and join me on the streets at 2 in the morning to let our dreams take flight? Leo, not appealing enough. Try again. Skylar, hot, sexy college girl online, seeking a faded man to enjoy a romantic e-scooter ride through the glittering lights of the early morning. Leo, pick me up. So where's this sexy college girl? Leo asked, looking around theatrically, deliberately ignoring the e-scooter driver in a pink helmet and a bulky coat. The driver raised a hand in protest. Here. I'm right here. All I see is Gragas, Leo said, tapping her helmet. You want to grab a drink this late? Hee Leo, you're the best. You knew who I was cosplaying right away. Skylar giggled, hopping off the driver's seat. So what's up? Why'd you call me out here? Leo asked, getting on the scooter and turning to wait for her answer. What he got was a dramatic wail. Tragedy. Time is so cruel. It's turned a vibrant college student into a man who only ever talks about business. Can a vibrant college student be busy? A vibrant college student is busy with his career so he can better enjoy his youth. Your life is already busy enough, so right now, stop being busy. At this very moment, we set off to enjoy a pointless, meaningless, but joyful and youthful life. Skylar stretched out her arms as if she were about to charge forward, waving a little red flag. Leo, let's go on a spontaneous trip. Don't we need a destination for that? My plan is to just keep going until we feel like stopping. Your scooter's only got 3 bars. That's not going to be enough. Leo, how can you be like this? Skylar forcibly turned his head to face her, looking utterly ridiculous in her helmet. You can't keep overthinking things. If you just want to keep going, nothing is a problem. I can ride, but if we can't get back, I'm not pushing it. My battery might run out, but we can find someone to charge it. We can call my dad to come get the scooter. The point is completing the journey. The rest doesn't matter. Fine. I'll ride wherever I want then. But I'm not pushing it. Let's go, Mr. Driver. Youth seems to be the perfect excuse for all kinds of madness. Sometimes it's hard to understand the reasons behind these crazy ideas, and you can only chalk it up to the raging hormones of a young body. The little pink scooter zipped through Riverbend's main streets, darted into an alley, and stopped in front of a dumpster behind a restaurant. They twisted and turned, trying to navigate through the trash, only to find it was a dead end. They slowly turned around and headed for the suburbs. Then they stopped in a patch of woods, where the girl climbed onto the man's back to look for wild berries on a tree. There was no logic, no motive, no purpose to any of it. A farmer who lived in the suburbs scratched his head, watching the man and woman get off the scooter. He kept asking his wife, "What are those two doing?" "Just a couple of kids having fun." "Right. See? Just put the filter of youth on it, and everything becomes reasonable. But the price of madness is... We're out of juice. You can push it back now," Leo said, leaning against a tree with his helmet in hand, a smile playing on his lips. "You're really going to make me push it? Look at me, a frail and delicate woman. You were just climbing a tree," Leo said, handing control of the scooter over to her. You'll push, you'll push. I came prepared." Skylar actually pulled a large pair of gloves from under the seat and started pushing the scooter earnestly, chattering all the while, "This is no trouble at all." Leo, exasperated, stopped her. "I saw a house back there with the lights on. We can give them some money to let us charge it." "I knew you'd have a plan. You're a genius, Leo." They pushed the scooter to the farmer's house. The family were vendors who sold produce in the city and were already up preparing their vegetables. They agreed to let them pick it up in 2 hours. Leo tried to pay them, but they refused. Now, the two of them were walking side by side in the suburbs, breathing the fresh air, sitting by a small fish pond under the moonlight. Skylar ran around, exclaiming, "See, Leo? Where there's a will, there's a way." Leo sat on a rock and tilted his head at her. "Don't you try to feed me some profound life lesson. Just tell me what's going on." "Nothing's going on," Skylar said, her face a mask of innocence. Leo walked over and started shaking her head. "What are you doing?" "I'm bored. I'm spinning a top." "Stop it, stop it." Skylar's face fell. She walked away, her back to him, and said pitifully, "How did you figure out? No one just calls me in the middle of the night for no reason." "I used to sneak out to see you in the middle of the night all the time," she retorted, raising a small fist. "But today was different. Your mom would never let you go out this late. Even if you snuck out, you'd be worried about getting caught and want to go back early. You'd never wander this far for no reason. So tonight, your parents gave you permission to come out, right?" Leo said, giving a little wave to Skylar's dad in the distance. Of course, Skylar wasn't going to push the scooter back. She had a chauffeur. It was hard not to notice the large van that had been tailing them, clearly brought along just in case. Skylar stomped her foot in frustration, pouting at Leo. "You always have to expose me." "So, what was the lesson you were trying to teach me?" "That when I make a decision, I shouldn't have so many worries. I should just go for it. And who knows what will happen," Leo said, a triumphant smirk on his face as he leaned in close to her. Watching her expression crumble, his smile grew wider. "You stole my line. You jerk, Leo." Furious, Skylar didn't fight back. She cried. She sat on a rock with her back to him, her sobs shaking her small frame. She had taken off her heavy coat to climb the tree, leaving her in just a cheerful red sweater. "Sob, you jerk, Leo. What are you crying for? Just tell me what's up," Leo said, his smile gone. He walked over and nudged her arm. "Okay, I'll pretend I don't know. You can say it again." "It won't work now." "Wah, fine. I agree with your point. Okay? Just stop crying." The moment he reached out his hand, Skylar jumped up. Her face was right in front of his without a single trace of a tear. "It's called method acting. Did I get you, bro? You're not going to invite me to travel the world, are you?" Leo asked, pushing Skylar's head down and making her sit on the rock. "So, will you go?" "No. Why not?" Leo shook his head and said nothing, picking up a small, flat stone and skipping it across the water. He pretty much understood what Skylar was getting at. This whole e-scooter adventure was her way of telling him not to worry so much, to just do things. Was it abstract? Yes, but that was Skylar. "Leo, you don't need to worry about your mom anymore. Your dad has been working hard to get back together with her. I know that. But it was never really about my mom," Leo said. He looked around for more stones, but couldn't find any, so he sat down on a large rock. Skylar handed him her helmet. "Here, use this. How the hell am I supposed to skip this?" Leo continued. "I'm not worried about my mom. As soon as Rick is back in the family's good graces, he'll be more desperate than anyone to patch things up. He'll practically grow a second pair of eyes to watch over her. Then what are you worried about? You don't have anything left to do here. First of all, I'm a student. Leo didn't even get to finish his sentence before he was drowned out by laughter. Ha 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 ha. I can't, that's too funny. What's so funny about that? Buddy, the dog who hangs out on campus, is more of a student than you are. He's been here longer than me. Of course he's got more school spirit. Buddy is the dog. Ha ha ha. Stop laughing. Leo couldn't control her laughter, so he just continued. Second, I have to take responsibility for Peyton and Evelyn. Skylar wasn't particularly surprised. She thought for a moment, then asked quietly, but it's not like you're leaving forever. They wouldn't tie you down, would they? Peyton wouldn't. But Evelyn. I'm not so sure. But Dr. Shaw already talked to me. Skylar held up her phone, showing him her chat history. She found me this afternoon. She asked for my thoughts, asked if I could spend more time with you before the trip. When she found out I was going to invite you, she said she wanted to talk to you about it as soon as possible. That's why I asked you out tonight. Evelyn asked you to do this. Skylar said nothing. Just showed him the phone so he could see for himself. Leo took a deep breath. This, he really didn't understand. But then again, he did. Evelyn just liked to do strange things. His relationship with Peyton could be defined as a lover. But his relationship with Evelyn was much harder to describe. Lover didn't feel right, and pet felt insulting. You could treat her the way you treat a pet. That's what she liked. But you couldn't erase her independent personality. Her goal is probably to help me get my memory back, Leo guessed. Anyway, neither Dr. Shaw nor Peyton will stop you. What other worries do you have? Put that way, Leo thought about it, and it seemed he really didn't have any other worries. A trip around the world, and we can come back whenever we want. We can see the salt flats, the biggest active volcano, the great seagull migration. And with the internet, if Dr. Shaw or Peyton sees a place they want to visit, they can join us anytime, or we can come back anytime. Leo didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. A strange, wistful feeling suddenly washed over him. Before his amnesia, he had given up so much at the last moment. In the car crash, he had gambled everything. What for? To stay with the Miller family? A strange thought entered his mind. Before the amnesia, Leo was a poor student, a kept man, a host at a high-end lounge. But that one car crash had changed his life. He had swerved into the crash, gambled, and became the Leo he was now. A third-generation heir, a young master, a shareholder in a speakeasy. He looked down at his reflection in the water. Two identical Leos stared back at each other. The Leo sitting on the rock studied the Leo on the surface of the lake. You gave up everything at the last second, risked it all. Was it to create a new identity, a life without worries, so you could travel the world with her? Leo stared blankly at the water. It was just a guess, but it was a guess that made sense. He had a pretty good idea of what his lost memories contained. His world was only so big. What else could he have been planning to do? Leo suddenly thought of the patriarch's last words. I'll give you what you want most. A life without worries. What do you get from a life without worries? Leo whipped his head around to look at Skylar, who was right beside him. The girl's eyes were bright with a crescent moon smile. She rested her chin on her knees and met his gaze. For a moment, there was silence. Then she said, Leo, you're amazing. I never thought we'd actually be able to travel the world together. Did I want to travel the world before? I don't know. When I asked you, you said no. You said you had a mountain of worries. Skylar traced the shape of a mountain in the air. But I didn't push you. I couldn't push you. I just hoped you would think about it. After all, it's fun hanging out with me, right? She tilted her head and smiled, bathed in the pale moonlight. She stood up and held out her hand to him. So, may I extend a formal invitation? Will you join my adventure? I won't. Leo shook his head. Though he was still refusing, there was a new hesitation in his voice. That's okay, but you have to give me a reason. You can't just reject someone without a reason, Skylar said. Not surprised, just pressing for an explanation. A reason? I'm needed here. If he had to give a specific reason, he couldn't. He wasn't some all-powerful hero, but he just felt that someone here needed him. There are still 5 days until New Year's. Let's stay and see if there's anyone else who really needs you right now, Skylar said, pulling a bubble gun from her pocket as if by magic. Leo, you can't live your whole life for other people. At some point, you have to live it for yourself. An idea was starting to take root in Leo's mind, and it was growing uncontrollably. It was hard to get someone like Leo to make a rash, crazy decision, but there was no doubt a seed had been planted. His mom didn't need him for now. Peyton supported his decision. Evelyn, for whatever bizarre reason, also supported him. So Leo called Silas. He used a tone of voice he rarely used, one that was completely serious. Silas, if I were to take a leave of absence to go traveling, what are you telling me for? You going to Southeast Asia and worried you won't come back? Your dad has more pull over there than I do. No, a long-term trip. I might not be back for a while. There was a short silence on the phone, followed by the old man's signature sarcasm. So, you're saying I'm stuck guarding the lounge every day while you go play outside for a few years? If you don't want the lounge, I'll just give it to someone else. No, I want it. Hearing this, Leo felt an unexpected wave of relief. He'd found his reason. Go on, play. Let a retiree do all the work. Give up the lounge? But Silas's next words changed his tune. Wait a minute. You're not going with Skylar Reed, are you? Yep. Skylar chirped from beside him. Silas went silent again. After a moment, he said, It's not impossible, but I have a mission for you. You have to swear a solemn oath that you'll bring Vivian back to me. Didn't you already give that mission to Skylar? That girl's too flighty. I can't trust her. If Vivian and I are going to get back together, it's going to require some deception. In that department, I trust you. But the lounge, when you get to my age, you'll understand. If you have a chance to fix one of life's regrets, what's a few more years of work? Leo hung up, silent. It seemed that for now, no one really needed him. Skylar just looked at him with her sparkling eyes, then looked down and poked her reflection in the water. Leo, maybe this is the life you were chasing before you lost your memory. Only you can give me the answer to that, Leo said, taking a deep breath. Skylar mumbled to herself, shaking her head like a pinwheel. You overestimate me. I can't read minds. How would I know what you're thinking? You know, Leo said, his eyes crinkling into a smile. Because you're my girlfriend. Rick Miller told me. He had expected her to deny it, or maybe panic. Or maybe it was just something Rick had said offhandedly, as he was prone to do. But Skylar stopped fidgeting. She looked into Leo's eyes and nodded solemnly. Already told you, she said. The day you got out of the hospital. Why are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Isn't that how it works? One person asks, the other person says yes, and then they're a couple. So I was the one who confessed to you, and you accepted, Leo asked, puzzled. Skylar nodded seriously. So did we automatically break up after I lost my memory? No. Why won't you just tell me our story from the beginning? I will. On the trip, I will, she said, looking down. It sounded less like she was talking to him and more like she was trying to convince herself. Leo, please just seriously consider joining my plan. What if this is the life you were looking for all along? I'll think about it. But it has nothing to do with my past self, Leo said, standing up on the rock and looking out into the distance. Of course, he wanted to know what his past self wanted. He had done so much to get to this point. He wanted to give his past self a sense of closure. But it had been a long time. Life hadn't stopped just because he'd lost his memory. The current Leo had new responsibilities. I'll seriously think about it. But if I go, it will be because I want to go now, not because I'm blindly trying to give the past a resolution. Leo blinked, then jumped down from the rock and ran over to the van where Skylar's dad was waiting, grabbing a bottle of water and chugging it. Then he ran back and asked a strange question. I've always wanted to ask you. My social media bio says, May the world have a tree of no sorrows. What does that mean? Because my bio is the next line, Skylar said, holding up her phone for him to see. Look at you two with the matching bios. So trendy. Leo took the phone and looked. If you put them together, they read, May the world have a tree of no sorrows, and may we walk beneath it, you and I, always. For days until New Year's. Thanks to the relentless assault of the algorithm, Leo had scrolled through at least 100 videos about traveling the world. There was one YouTuber in particular, a short, dark-haired guy, whose channel he couldn't seem to escape. Leo, who had snuck home late to sleep, didn't wake up until noon. The first thing he saw was a woman folding clothes. It wasn't his mom. Willow, what are you doing in my room? I've always slept in your room. My clothes and everything are in here. Then where were you last night? I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and I saw you come back. I slept on the sofa. Willow's voice was ethereal, giving her a wispy, almost unreal quality. In simple terms, she spoke quietly and always sounded like she lacked confidence. Leo strained to hear what she was saying, then looked her over, still half asleep. And as he looked, he did a double take. Willow, how old are you this year? Same age as you. You're only 20. Where did you get this intense wife vibe? Leo said, looking her up and down, genuinely confused. Willow's face instantly turned bright red. She clutched the hem of her shirt and looked down, feeling dizzy under his sudden scrutiny. But when she looked up again, Leo was gone. He was knocking on his mom's door. Mom, can I talk to you about something? Come in. Leo pushed the door open and saw his mom giggling at her phone. Mom, are you dating again? What are you talking about? His mom put her phone down and gave her son, whom she hadn't seen in days, an exasperated look. Whose house have you been staying at this time? Hee hee. This is my only home. What other home could I have? You little sweet talker. It's almost New Year's. No more running around. I know. I'm planning to run around after the new year. Where to? Leo sat on the bed, gathering his thoughts before he spoke. Mom, if I were to go traveling, would you be okay with it? Is it a school trip? Go, of course. Mom will give you the money. The word traveling seemed to touch a nerve with Diane Miller. She was unusually enthusiastic. From elementary school on, Leo had never once gone on a school field trip. He wouldn't even come home and mention that the teacher was collecting money for an activity. She only found out at parent-teacher conferences. Those who love you always feel they owe you. Mom, it's not a school trip. I might even have to take a leave of absence. I want to see the world. A leave of absence? Can you go back to school after that? Yeah, my spot is hell. Then you should go. Mom supports you. Diane had seen a bit of the world. She had even traveled abroad with Rick back in the day. She even had a bold idea. Son, have you ever thought about studying abroad? I remember a lot of the Miller kids studied overseas. She didn't know much about it, or what made foreign universities better. But if everyone else went, maybe your son want to go too. Seeing his mom's enthusiasm, Leo felt a sense of absurdity. He had always subconsciously felt that this family couldn't hold itself together without him. Mom, I'm actually a little worried about you. What if I'm not around? You're worried about me? His mom looked at him, surprised. Other kids go to college out of state and only come home a few times a year. It's normal for kids to leave home when they get older. But your health isn't great. You need someone to take care of you. At this, Diane became a little bashful. Your father has been calling me a lot these past few days. He suggested finding a nice, quiet place for me to go and recuperate for a while. What? You guys are moving that fast. It's not like that. I haven't agreed to get back together with him. Why not? His mom didn't answer, but Leo knew why. 20 years of resentment couldn't be erased overnight. The only real issue between his parents was the one his mom couldn't get over in her own heart. She was of course wronged. Leo scratched his head and left the room. He suddenly felt like the odd one out in this family. On a whim, he pressed his ear to the door to eavesdrop. As expected, his mom was on the phone with Rick. Rick, our son says he wants to go on some world trip. How much money will he need? If he's going to spend like crazy, there's no limit. It costs that much. Let me see what I can scrape together for him from my account. What are you talking about? My son is traveling. I'll pay for it. He could take a few of his little girlfriends with him, have some fun, and come back with a few grandkids for us. You're never serious. A man can only have one wife to marry and have children with. Diane, don't you worry about that. All the Miller kids these days are dating around. It's normal for men to make a few mistakes in that department. Oh, so you're a young master too? You want to have a girl on each arm? What are you saying? I'm too old for that nonsense. Rick, you need to pay attention to our son's other half. Aren't all of Leo's cousins married by now? Ethan's wife. Was that an arranged thing, or did they fall in love? Well, why are you hesitating? How is his wife now? Diane, I have something I need to take care of. I'll call you back. Eavesdropping, Leo heard some worrying keywords. He hurried away, his legs moving so fast they were a blur. When he turned around, he saw her. Willow Shung, looking a little unnatural. What's up, Willow? Are you going traveling with Skylar? It's not set in stone, just an idea. Can I go? Aren't you a homebody? Traveling is all wind and sun. Can you handle it? I can. I'll do whatever you say. If you want me to go, I'll go. If you don't, I won't. Willow looked up timidly, her heart pounding. You should stay here. Raise your cat. Read some books. That's a good life, Leo said, not spending too much time on her. There was nothing more he could do. He had fulfilled his promise to her. This was the best possible outcome. He just hoped that Willow would soon see that and find a life of her own.